Rancho Cini Recreation and Park District. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, I invited Kim May to do the Pledge of Allegiance. She's my sister. The reason I invited her is this year she's helped me out with many projects, including we painted a wildlife tunnel at Corriganville, and she organized and matched up some paint for me. So I appreciate she matched up the paint to some cement walls, to some rocks I was having problems with, and then she painted some rocks to let me hide in the parks. So Kim, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will try. I need my other hand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kim. See you soon. Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila?
Here.
Director Freeman? Here. Director Gray?
Here.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Here.
Chair Denner?
Here. Dan, is there any items for agenda review?
I don't have any changes to the order, but I've got a few items to note. First of all, I'd like to, Brian Hamlet is sitting in for Brian Purick as our legal counsel this evening. He is on Zoom. Item number 6B, which is a resolution regarding public meetings. When we get to that item, we'll need to pull it. The resolution number needs to be 2016, so we just need to change the number on that. And then for item 8A, the item on pickleball and tennis court, there's a number of correspondence and letters and emails that we've received on that item. A good chunk of them are attached to the staff report that was distributed on Monday to the board. There was another number of emails that we received before this afternoon that was put out in a supplemental information. There was about 10 or so on that one. And then since that time, I have 4 more pieces of correspondence staff has received. According to our rules, these 4 that we've received up until 5 and after they were distributed in hard copy, these will need to be read into the record under public comment to the extent that the folks sent these in don't speak here tonight, so we'll keep track of that. That's all for agenda review.
So Dan, at the end of public comments on that item, if they haven't spoken, then we'll read them?
Correct.
Okay.
For 3 minutes.
Chair,
Yes.
Chair Denner, may I ask, when we get to that item, I did not have a chance to review my emails today, so if we can just take maybe 5 minutes so I can
Sure.
review those before we actually start the discussion of the item.
So what Ed asked for and what we're going to do is when we get to that item, we're going to take a break because we had some late emails, so everybody can be familiar with those emails, and then we'll make sure those are.
If we didn't do it that way, I feel like we'd be jipping the people who went to the trouble of writing it. So I honestly
I think that's
don't have
good.
a chance to.
We might need 10 minutes because there's a fair amount of emails.
Okay, thank you.
That brings us to public statements for items not on the agenda. If you're speaking tonight for an item not on the agenda, I'm going to ask people in person just to raise your hand if you haven't already turned in a card, and then I'll look at Zoom after that. Anybody speaking on an issue not pickleball or tennis? And from your angle, you're not seeing one back there, are you?
I am not.
For the people at home, there's not that large of an audience, but there's some recording equipment, so I'm just making sure I didn't miss a hand. For the people on Zoom, is there anybody speaking on an item not on the agenda? I see Chris. Chris, we're going to go with you first. So Chris, when I say go ahead, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The floor is yours.
So I'm up right now?
Yep, go ahead, Chris.
I'm here on behalf of the board for Sycamore BMX. I talked to you guys a couple of months ago. We had submitted all the information that you guys had asked for via email through Dan, and we also had asked for some additional information that you guys had obtained prior to the track closing. You guys did utilization reports and also parking reports, and we haven't been privy to any of that information. And also, we haven't received any responses to any of our emails or anything that's going on. So we're just wondering where we're standing right now. We provided all the information that you guys have asked for, and that was over like 4 months ago. We haven't heard anything back from you guys at all. And really, that's all that I'm here is, Sycamore BMX is we still have our board, and we're still trying to get this together. We actually just got back a lot of us just got back from the Grand Nationals that were held in Tulsa, Oklahoma this year. It was the largest race that's ever been in the world. It was over 959 motos and over 4,500 participants just in the race, not including the family and all the friends and everybody that was there. So the sport is growing, and I know that it's already in the 5-year plan, but your 5-year plan is already 3 or 3.5 years past. So I think that this is an urgent item that we need to get working on. And as far as I can see right now, there is nothing going on for that at all. And really, that's all I have to say.
Chris, thank you. I'm going to ask the staff in a moment for answers to some of your questions. It's not on the agenda tonight, so we can't discuss it at length, but there is a budgetary process coming up, and you can see that on the board report, and there will be many opportunities to speak on that part too. But Ed, I think I heard you say something?
I didn't think.
No. Dan, he had a question about the request for information.
Yeah, Charles, I can't, it doesn't come to the top of my head. I do remember we received some information from them, but I'll have to go back and take a look at that and see how we've responded to that or addressed that. I know we did talk about BMX a little bit during our budget process, so I'm going to have to refresh my memory on that discussion relative to the 5-year CAP and also relative to the information they submitted. So I need a little time, I guess, is what I'm saying, to review the record of that.
And then we could get an update, maybe the next meeting or the meeting after.
Sure, I can do that.
May I just
Yes.
ask a question of the speaker, if he wants to answer?
If you could keep it short.
Yeah, I just have a question. If you can, in a nutshell, what did you provide, just so that I'm aware of what's been provided? Because I didn't know that there was anything provided. What did you provide?
We provided hours of operation, kind of like a business plan. We also provided the number of riders that were local to the Simi Valley area, because that's the information that you guys are looking for. And I still don't understand that, because even if we're pulling from outside cities, I know that you guys don't benefit from it directly. However, the community does.
I just wanted to know what you provided.
Oh, okay. So we provided that, and we provided a board of directors list for you guys with all their contact information, and like I said, the local CD Valley riders list of them.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
And then Chris, because it's not on the agenda, we can't discuss it at length, but a follow-up question to that is, you said you did not get a response to your emails. Was that emails that you sent to staff or to board of directors?
I sent it straight through Dan.
Okay.
Paranek.
I think
Yeah.
I'll follow up with Dan to find out that information that he said he put together for us. Chris, do you think there's anybody else that came with you tonight to speak?
No, I didn't. What I'm basically doing is I'm trying to keep it as small as possible. I could have 100 people here speaking every time that you guys have a board meeting, but I just think it's a waste of time. We just need to, start moving on to, get this thing planning. We need to have a meeting or something or talk about it.
Thank you. I just don't want to skip anybody if they're, like I see iPhone.
Chris?
I didn't know the name.
Chris, when did you provide that information?
It's been 4 or 5 months ago. I was on this Zoom meeting 4 or 5 months ago, and I talked about it. And at the same time, you guys were talking about doing some upgrades to the skate parks, and there was a whole bunch of other things that were important. I understand that, but this is on the 5-year plan. It's already been approved. It's basically been promised to the people of the
So
community.
anyway, you provided it about 4 or 5 months ago.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll put it on the, just get that information from the district manager at a future meeting. Maybe the next meeting or the meeting after that, you said you put together. Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? Dan, is there anybody that you anticipate might speak?
On,
Besides pickleball and tennis?
not that I'm aware of, no.
I will call on, I will provide an opportunity if anybody changes their mind, but I'll assume that And I'll check in one more time. There's nobody else that want to speak, so I won't go as pause at each item for a long time waiting, but if that changes, just make sure you get my attention. That brings us to approval of minutes.
Motion to
Discussion.
approve.
Second.
Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
Chair Denner?
Yes.
The motion carries with a unanimous vote.
That brings us to the consent agenda.
Move. I'll second.
Chair, if I could, we need to note on item 6B that the resolution number for that item needs to be resolution number 2016, not 2015.
I assume the motion was with that
Yeah.
change of mind,
With the amendment.
with the amendment? I don't see any public comments on that. My teacher instincts, I saw somebody move like they had a question, but it looks like we're good. Gina, will you call the roll on the consent agenda?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
Chair Denner?
Yes.
The motion carries with a unanimous vote.
That brings us to item 7. Presentation scheduled items and public hearings. Presentation appreciation to interim Oak Park Recreation Supervisor Brian McQueen.
Thank you, Chair. Director of Recreation Zach Miller will provide the report.
Thank you, Chair Dennard and Board of Directors. This evening, we'd like to formally thank Brian McQueen publicly for his service as the interim Oak Park Supervisor for the past 6 months. We've tried to do this a couple times, and unfortunately, Brian's not able to make the meeting again tonight, but we're going to do it and thank him publicly, and I'll pass on any comments that you have, as well as he's going to watch the video, so he'll be happy to hear your comments. But with the recent appointment of Kelly Negretti as the permanent recreation supervisor, we thought it was important to talk about Brian's work during his time in Oak Park. When I came in, Brian jumped in enthusiastically and brought back many of the popular programs post-COVID that had been shut down. These included the preschool program, some fitness and sports classes. He did a great and resumed the Concert in the Park series, and then kind of capped his tenure with the Halloween Carnival, which was a huge success out in Oak Park. Brian also got the facility rentals moving forward again, and was able to book out many months in advance for the Buena Vista room in Oak Park, and did a really great job with facility rentals out in Oak Park. Brian's knowledge of the district and competence in leading a team was critical for my success during my transition. I'm really thankful for him to be in that role at that time, and he really stabilized Oak Park and made my life a lot easier in my first few months on the job, so I would like to note that. He engaged with the public and the Oak Park Planning Committee professionally, and they also shared some very nice words about Brian's time and service in the community. Although he was unable to attend tonight, we wanted to share our thanks to Brian's service to the district during these challenging times. Brian has joked he's been thanked many times publicly and non-publicly, but told us that he'd be very appreciative of any comments you might have. He's back at the pool and is looking forward to some great aquatics programs in the near future. So just thank you to Brian McQueen and his service to the district.
Brian, when you're watching this video later, we appreciate that, like many of our employees, are very flexible and the times call for it. Thank you, because we can't run the programs we do without that type of flexibility and energy. And I know I've said it before, but I appreciate the music selection at the pool, and I look forward to that going. Keep going. Ed?
Sure. Brian, if you are going to watch this back or listen back to this, as I'm sure you will, I know this is like the third time now that I'm praising. I did it at the last Oak Park Committee meeting you attended, and then at the board meeting that was intended for Oak Park. But I'll do one more variation of it tonight because I think you deserve it. You took over the interim position there at a challenging and difficult time, and you did an excellent job, and that's clear from the comments that the Oak Park Committee made. I've mentioned it before, I'll say it again. I knew Brian before I ever got on the park board, and I've always thought he was a good guy. I know your first love is at the pool, so I'm glad you can be back at the pool, but I just want to say as a board member that I've encouraged this recognition for you because I think it's really well deserved. You've set a high bar over there, so you got your work cut out for you, Kelly, but you set a high bar over there, Brian. And I just want to say, both as a friend of yours and as a board member, that I really appreciate the work you did out there, and you deserve the recognition that you're getting for your time as the interim supervisor in Oak Park.
I would just like to say thank you for filling in at a very difficult time, actually, and a time of great need over there, and so I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
So what everyone else said, thank you for filling in during trying times. So stepping up to the plate, that was great. Thank you.
Not seeing any more comment? That'll bring us to the next item. Presentation of the part-time employee of the month for November 2021.
Thank you, Chair, Director of Administration Teresa Pennington will provide the report.
Chair Dennert and members of the board, the part-time employee of the month for November 2021 is Frank Miller, and Frank is here with us this evening. He's a maintenance worker 4 at Simi Hills Golf Course. He's worked for the district for almost 14 years, and this is his second Employee of the Month award. The person who nominated Frank stated the following: Frank provides exemplary service, reliable crew leadership, and makes himself available in case of emergencies, both day and night, to the Simi Hills Golf Course. As the golf course's irrigation tech, his main job during the week is irrigation programming and scheduling, and he has been doing an outstanding job. He recently refitted dozens of irrigation heads with high efficiency, water-saving rotors, and started a water use monitoring program for the major consumption areas of the golf course to reduce overall use. His passion for horticulture and desire to always learn has served the golf course well. Frank is courteous and helpful to supervisors and coworkers while maintaining a high degree of professionalism with the public. Congratulations to Frank on this well-deserved recognition. Frank, you want to come up?
Frank, we're all going to speak and say nice things about you, but you get the microphone first.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's been an exciting 14 years. I retired from the grocery business after 37 years and was bored. So I took a Master Gardener program and wanted to put it to work. And so I saw a job opening here at the golf course, and I said, well, there's a lot of gardening going on there. So I met Jeff and just really liked his demeanor and the ability to fit my schedule where we needed to be. And I just started liking working there so much, I just kept working more and more and more and more. And then met the rest of the staff. And nothing but accolades for the people there who mentor you and teach you and actually listen to ideas you might have, and gave me the opportunity to look into water conservation. And that was something very near and dear to my heart with the Master Gardener program, to make sure that all the things are getting water, but redirecting water to areas that needed it more, taking the water that's getting overwatered and taking it away from there. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to do those things and keep me busy and happy. It's been nothing but a pleasure to be there. Thank you.
Don't go away yet. I see that Brian Reed is on the call or the Zoom, and I'm going to anticipate that he has something to say.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I really do appreciate that. I cannot say enough kind things about Frank. He really is the core of the team down there. He gets it all done. I mean, getting water on that golf course is a very complicated task. I mean, there's many different types of grass and heights of cut and lots of different playing surfaces, and it's a very complicated endeavor, and Frank does a tremendous job, and we really can't thank him enough. He's super kind and friendly to everybody at the course, and he's a pleasure to work with. And Frank, I really do appreciate all your time and service, and thank you for everything you've done, and this is really well deserved, so congratulations.
Thank you, Brian.
Saving water has always been important, but with the new restrictions, all the water you save in one spot, it's not just saving money, but it's going to end up being used somewhere else, so we appreciate that. Thank you for that. Other comments from board members?
Sure.
Ed?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to thank you and just say how much I appreciate what you've done. You know, I'm kind of probably known as an emphasis on recreation as a board member, but in terms of I appreciate all the employees, but my appreciation for maintenance workers increased exponentially with the pandemic and the fact that you can't really water a golf course sitting at home on Zoom or by telephone or anything like that. And I know you and all the maintenance workers were out there when we needed it most. And when we were serving the public at the most important time possible when they needed to be out and about. So I really appreciate all of them. I appreciate you and well deserved on the award.
Thank you very, very much.
Any other board members?
I just want to say, I don't think you realize that what you do reflects on the whole district, because so many people play the course from all over, and we get wonderful accolades about the course, and it's because it's maintained properly, and that means it's watered properly. And so in this day and age with drought, we're going to be even more important to keep things running and looking good. So thank you. Appreciate your skills.
Thank you.
We're congratulating you, and also, no pressure, but good luck with the water savings.
You know, it's a very interesting science, and it was so exciting to see the bills and how much you were able to really do, and it's just a thought process. And it used to be done by a computer, but the computer didn't do it, as precisely to each area as it could, as a human could. And so it turned out to be quite significant numbers. I was like really excited. And nothing made me happier to see not the dollars, but also the water that you talked about going somewhere else or saving it for a future day or something like that. It was really exciting to do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Sure.
We're going to recycle that joke. This is free parking in all parks.
All right. Yeah.
Brandon, just see me Recreation Park District Parks. And that's for you. We'll hold that up together. Ken,
Thank you.
you keep it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Brian, let
Yes.
me know when I'm eligible for that free parking too.
We'll work on that. That brings us to presentation scheduled items for public hearings. Item C, presentation of the full-time employee of the month for November 2021.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide the report.
Thank you. And our November 2021 Employee of the Month is Brian Horstman-Chav. I do want to say a special welcome to his mother, who I see is on the line, Karen Garber. And Karen is the former Director of Administration. So hi, Karen. Nice to see your name up there. Brian received 2 nominations in the same month, and I just have to comment that that's very rare, so kind of an extra special recognition here. The people who nominated Brian stated the following. Brian is a dedicated employee. He commutes between the Activity Center and the Senior Center, where he's the lead of the 50+ programs. Having great patience and the natural ability to work with people makes him a perfect fit, not only at the Senior Center, but with staff throughout the district. Brian, realizing the importance of our senior population during the COVID shutdown, developed classes and programs utilizing other facilities within Rancho Simi to give an outlet for those needing that social comfort. He was also instrumental in putting on the 15th and 16th annual community games, which consisted of over 300 participants at each event and branched out to run the family campouts, as well as transporting students to after-school clubs. Brian has taken on a great deal of personal accountability to ensure the success of the programs. His goal is to provide an amazing experience for the participants, and he strives hard to achieve that goal every day. For these reasons and many others, Brian is deserving of the Employee of the Month award. So congratulations, Brian.
Brian,
thank you very much. It's quite an honor.
I can't believe 2 people nominated me for the month. That's pretty special. So I really appreciate it, and I thank God every day that I have the opportunity to come to RSRPD and be a part of this great community and helping out with the seniors. I never thought I would be in this age demographic, but it's really worked out well, and I'm extremely blessed. Great staff with Stan and Karen and Henry to work for and work with. And Danielle's been a great support, and Zach coming in, and it's just been a great opportunity for me to be part of the Age 50 Plus program and to serve this community. It's a great honor, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Congratulations on that. Is there anybody on the Zoom call that would like to speak? Earlier, I heard Karen's name. Didn't know if just listening in. Zach?
This is Danielle. I'd like to say something. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
So I have the pleasure of working with Brian every day, and I will tell you, he brings so much energy and joy to the district. He's certainly passionate about the age demographic that he's working with, but he's really passionate about any program. So you might not have known from the video, but Brian's actually had a second job. And I can tell you, if I was working a second job at night, I probably wouldn't be so pleasant the next day, but you would never know it from Brian. He comes in cheerful, he's excited, he's ready to work, he's ready for the tasks that are ahead of him. So he takes on any task. He's helped out with various programs during the pandemic, on a moment's notice. So I just want to add that he's a true treat to work with, and I hope that he continues to grow with this agency, because we'd be at a true deficit if we ever lost him.
Thank you. Zach?
Thank you, Chair. I think Danielle took some of my comments, but I will just kind of echo it. Brian's one of those guys that when you see in the hallway every morning, he gives you the energy and spirit to have a great day, and it's infectious. And so I like to see Brian in the halls. When we get to see him here, he brings the whole team up and gets us on the right path for the right attitude going into the day. And we did mention it in his acknowledgement, but him jumping into the after-school clubs and doing things out of his traditional scope has been super valuable. He was literally driving a van full of kids back and forth to after-school clubs instead of working on other programs and balancing all those things, but those programs that he was walking away from, like the seniors, never suffered. And I think that's just a testament to his work ethic and his desire to be a valuable member of the team, so I didn't want to miss the opportunity to say that publicly.
Thank you. Any other board members?
Yes.
Elaine?
I would just like to say on the senior games, that's a great event. It touches about 300, as Ms. noted, 300 people, and brings people out and keeps them healthy. If they're active, they're healthy, and I just think that's terrific, and you do a great job. I don't know if you realize how many lives you've actually touched in your tenure here, but you really have in a very positive way. Thank you.
Any other board members?
I just want to echo what everyone else said. Thank you for all of your hard work. And that's it.
Thank you so much for your work.
I'm picking up on a theme, which is our employees are flexible and team, because Brian, you're accepting an award and you threw out all the people that made your success possible, or some of them, and the team that you work with. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you provide opportunities for people to improve their mental and physical health with all the different types of activities you organize. So thank you. I'm going to give you a virtual high five. I don't know if this is going to work, but somewhere out there. Have a good night. That brings us to item 7D, status of the district's response to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic.
Thank you, Chair. We've had no complaints and no positives amongst the staff since the last time we met. The federal mandate regarding vaccination is on hold. We have heard nothing from OSHA, so we will be taking no action on that until we get any direction from them. And our programs are up and running, and we're still continuing to try to get folks to enroll and get out and about and use our services. So that completes my report.
Is there any questions for the district manager? Dan, I appreciate the work our employees are doing to keep things open and safe for people to participate. That includes some of us are hesitant to join a class, not knowing what the safety protocols are. You know, like once you show up, is it what it says on paper, or is it what's actually there? And then others of us are very energetic to enroll in classes, and our staff has to provide for everybody and a safe place for everybody to be, so I appreciate that. Recently I had my booster shot, and hoping that that's one way out of this pandemic, so I'm happy to hear that there was no more positive since our last meeting. That's what you said, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? That's going to bring us to continued business. We're going to take a break, as Ed requested earlier. There was a packet that was sent to us that we received today right before the meeting with not enough time to read for it. I see that it's 7:01, so we're going to reconvene at 7:11 to give us a chance to look through it. And reconvene this meeting. Zach, you're going to introduce this item?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Zach will provide staff's report, and Mr. Nakaoka is on the bench in this in case the board has any questions regarding some of the construction and cost estimates.
Thank you and good evening, Chair Jenner, Board of Directors. In September, the Board of Directors considered tennis and pickleball court needs and requests from the community to provide more pickleball courts. Based on the discussion that evening, the board directed that the following 4 items be brought back for further discussion and consideration, along with estimated construction costs to the district. First was explore the increased use of existing pickleball courts at Sinaloa Middle School during daytime hours when school is not in session. 2, explore and provide a cost estimate for adding lights at Sinaloa Middle School pickleball courts. The third was explore and provide a cost estimate for the conversion of 2 existing tennis courts to 6 pickleball courts at Rancho Simi Community Park. And the fourth was to explore and provide a cost estimate for lighting upgrades to the existing courts at Rancho Tapo Community Park. Tonight we wanted to bring you back some specific information and estimated costs for each of these items for your consideration. The first would be the increased use of Sinaloa Middle School courts. The Simi Valley Unified School District has agreed to allow the district to open Sinaloa Middle School pickleball courts on the following schedule. Weekdays from 4:30 p.m. till dusk, weekends from 7 a.m. to dusk, and all summer long, essentially from 7 a.m. to dusk. In this scenario, staff would be responsible for opening and closing the courts daily and supplying a portable toilet and removing trash on non-school days. We'd work with the district schedule and close the courts on any days that the school needed it for school-based events. And we did agree that we would discuss financial assistance when the needs to refurbish the courts was necessary. The addition of Sinaloa Middle School would add 12 courts on evenings and weekends for public play. Weekday hours during the winter months would be limited due to the lack of lights, although it would increase the hours available without impacting existing tennis courts. Item number 2 was the addition of lights at the Sinaloa Middle School pickleball courts. Adding lights at Sinaloa could provide evening hours of play for the community. The school district was open to the idea when we met with them, but it would be a longer-term project to complete. The project would require extensive engineering and coordination with the school district. And the preliminary cost estimate for this project is $291,398.27. We did provide attachment B to your packet this evening that goes into detail on what those costs were. Item number 3 is the conversion of 2 existing tennis courts to 6 pickleball courts at Rancho Simi Community Park. Rancho Simi currently has 6 dedicated pickleball courts and 6 dedicated tennis courts. Wayne has provided a cost estimate for the conversion of 2 of those courts, 2 of those tennis courts to an additional 6 pickleball courts, very similar to the conversion project that occurred in 2018. This project would include some concrete work, fencing, striping, and poles and nets. The preliminary staff estimate for completion of this project is $104,975 and is in attachment C of your packet. The fourth item was lighting upgrades to the existing courts at Rancho Tapo pickleball courts. The Rancho Tapo court lighting is a little bit older and was not as bright as it is at Rancho Simi. Improvements to the light fixtures and new LED bulbs are the bulk of the cost of this project. We believe that this would improve the lighting and would make the courts comparable to the current lighting at Rancho Simi. The preliminary cost estimate for this project would be $60,310.14, and this information is in attachment D of your packet. The goal of this project would be to make Rancho Tapo more attractive to the evening players, but it does not create any additional playable courts. And in attachment E of this packet, I think we noted that you've received correspondence since September 15th meeting and the additional supplemental package you received this evening. And that has all the information we've received on this topic since the last meeting. So some alternatives we'd like for you to consider tonight and work through. One would be to retain the current configuration of all the courts in Simi Valley and expand the hours of use at Sinaloa. Staff would monitor the usage and the need for additional courts when Sinaloa is fully activated. If more weekend or evening hours are needed, we would explore the potential of using Hillside and Valley View Elementary Schools, which would give us an additional 21 courts. Those would all be available during daytime hours only, as none of those facilities have lights. But the school district has said that they would be open to the similar agreements and the expanded use of Hillside and Valley View should the need ever arise. The second alternative is to direct staff to pursue the permitting and install lights at Sinaloa pickleball courts in conjunction with the school district. The third alternative would be to direct staff to prepare bid documents for conversion of 2 existing tennis courts to the 6 dedicated pickleball courts at Rancho Simi. The fourth alternative would be to direct staff to prepare bid documents to upgrade lighting at Rancho Tapo Park. The fifth alternative is to modify the current configuration of courts in Simi Valley and establish a priority use schedule, which provides exclusive pickleball and tennis at specific times each month. Sixth option, direct staff to pursue construction of new pickleball courts at an undeveloped park site or a park location of your choice. Or finally, provide other direction to staff. The fiscal impact, if the board chooses alternative 2, 3, or 4, staff would have to develop a funding plan and recommendations when the authorization to solicit bids agenda comes before the board. And the recommendation is that the board provide direction to the staff regarding pickleball and tennis court usage for facilities in Simi Valley. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
We're going to go with questions from board members. Then after that, it's going to be public comment. And then after that, we'll have a discussion. The board will have a discussion. So we're going to go with questions from board members, but for staff, we're going to try to stay on that topic of questions so that we could listen to public comment before we have a further discussion. Are there questions from board members?
I have a question.
Kate?
Item 4, lighting upgrade to Rancho Tapo pickleball courts. It says here it will attract more evening players, but won't create additional courts, which is true. Now my question is, I seem to recall that somebody, last time this came up, somebody was telling us that the lighting at Tapo Canyon made the courts unusual, or Rancho Tapo made the courts unusual after dark. So, I mean, even though we're not creating more courts, if we improve the lighting, we are in effect creating more courts in a sense. Is that true?
So that item did come in response to that comment we received at the meeting, which was that, that CB has such better lights that people prefer to play there in the evening. There are lights at the Tapo courts. They're not as bright and they're not the LED model. The Tapo facility has the same lights on tennis and pickleball courts. So what we would be suggesting here is to upgrade just the pickleball court lights to be comparable to CB so that hopefully we could bring some people over and minimize the impact at Rancho CB.
Yeah, okay.
Building on that same question, you said just the pickleball court lights, not the tennis courts, but there's also the dual use courts at Rancho Tapo. There's the courts that strike for both. Those lights would stay the same?
Correct. I think what our proposal is here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne, but it would be just to upgrade the lights on the existing dedicated pickleball courts at Rancho Tapo.
And our understanding of the use currently, it's not maximized in the evenings?
I think if I was to comment on that, it would be that Rancho Simi is the preferred location in the evenings for most players. I know that there are players that play at Tapo. I don't think it's impacted as much, but it is very busy there. I think evening players have chosen to go there when the Simi courts are most impacted or when the wait times seem to be the longest.
The reason I ask is Kate had mentioned it has a similar effect to adding more courts.
Yeah, I mean.
But if the courts were already impacted, then it's an upgrade, but it doesn't add more courts if they're already full.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. That was kind of my question.
So your understanding is that they're often not full?
I believe based on the comment that we received from one of the members of the public at the last meeting was that they would be more willing to play at Tapo if the lights were upgraded and therefore move some of those players potentially from Rancho Simi over to Rancho Tapo. We have no analysis that shows that would actually work, but we're basing that on the feedback we were given by the public.
Ed?
Yeah, I have some questions, but let me just follow up on that because it gets more muddled with every answer. the Rancho Tapo courts, where the lighting is not desirable at night, it's not that those courts aren't being used at night, they're just not as much fun to use, they're not as desirable to use. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
So they are being used, so the effect is that it doesn't really add additional courts.
Correct. It would only be that more players might not have to wait as long if they were waiting to play at Simi. They could go over to Tapo to play conceivably.
But some still play at Tapo, even though the lighting sucks.
Correct.
Okay. So the next question that I have, I just want to, one thing I do, because the one area that I'm least familiar with is the Sinaloa middle school pickleball courts. How many pickleball courts are there at Sinaloa Middle School?
Alex, can you pull that up for me? There are 12. Yeah, I know the answer. There are 12. We do have an overhead. There are 12 existing courts on the campus currently.
Okay, so I want to make sure that the information skips around. So I want to make sure of a few things here. On the Sinaloa Middle School pickleball courts, to the preliminary estimate for adding lighting for those 12 courts is close to $300,000, and either Zach or Wayne can answer. It doesn't matter to me. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So that's to light 12 courts. So those 12 courts are usable without lighting during the day, during daylight hours. So it's to add nighttime usage for 12 courts is $300,000.
That's correct.
Okay. Now the less desirable nighttime location of Rancho Tapo, to add lighting there and make it more desirable is over $60,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But the net effect there essentially is really to not add a whole lot of playing time, because it still gets used, it's just not the first choice.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. Then to to convert 2 existing tennis courts at Rancho Simi into 6 pickleball courts. So essentially doing the other half of the one side. There's two sides of courts there. To complete the one side of court conversion from tennis courts to pickleball courts would be about $100,000.
That's our estimate at this time.
And that would be adding 6 pickleball courts that could then be used during the day and at night.
That's correct.
Now, and I don't know if this is more a question for you, Zach, or a question for Dan. Under the alternative suggested, under alternative number 1, which is the use of courts at Sinaloa, and then potential use of courts at Hillside or Valley View. Just so I'm clear, that's something that staff is working on with the school district, correct? Or has worked on with the school district?
Correct, and we had a prior agreement that had options for more limited hours, like it was, and so we've worked with the school district since your last meeting, and they've agreed to allow us to use them for longer hours.
So, apart from any court or any decision that we're making as a board, that's something that the staff can just go ahead and implement. There's no need to wait on that. It's pretty much, those are available to us. It's just a question of being able to staff it and take care of the staffing needs.
Correct.
Okay. So that's not really something that even requires board action. That's something that can, without any board action, immediately facilitate those courts.
Correct.
Okay. And then the item number 5. I want to get clarity on what this means. It says modify the current configuration of courts in Simi Valley and establish a priority use schedule which provides exclusive pickleball and tennis court use at specific times each month. What do we mean by modify the current configuration of courts?
To take some of the existing tennis courts and strike them for more pickleball. So rather than they'd be make more dual-use courts.
So there's a lot of things going on here, so let me ask a question which maybe should be obvious to me, but isn't right at this moment, but it might be after you answer the question. So let's say there wasn't any modification of any courts. Would the staff still be able to establish a priority use schedule for pickleball and tennis?
Yes.
Okay. So again, that's something that the staff can do without any board action and can do immediately.
We would want some board direction on that, because once we dual strike them, or do the scheduling.
That wasn't my question.
Okay,
my question was, forget dual striping. Then again, maybe I'm missing something that's obvious. So this is what I'm trying to help you. Forget the first part of changing the configuration. Establishing a priority use schedule, if that was even desirable. I'm not saying that's desirable, but if that's even what the tennis or pickleball communities wanted, I don't even know if it is. But if it was something they wanted, that's not something that requires board action.
Yes and no. Staff could do that. However, it will change the availability of the courts at any given time during the week for pickleball or tennis.
All right. So I have a lot of comments, but I don't fully know my comments because I want to hear from the public. But I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what all these different things mean. So those are my questions.
Zach, I have a question about the lights at Sinaloa.
Yes.
I see the cost, and it's obviously prohibitive. It's a high number. Would the cost, and Wayne, you might be able to answer this, would we anticipate the cost being relatively the same if we did it at Hillside or Valley View? Is it the light and the equipment? Is it the location and the, do we know that part? Like, is it the school's current infrastructure?
Chair, if I could start that while Wayne's getting there. So the lights at the tennis courts on the school campuses don't have the infrastructure of the electricity around them. So the reason the cost is so much lighter comparatively to the $60,000 is because we've got to put in all the underground electricity and develop the feed and put in the meters. The locations at Hillside and Valley View, I believe, are the same. We would still need to put in all that infrastructure, but we haven't evaluated that. So I would say if the infrastructure isn't there, yes, the cost of the lighting system at Hillside and Valley View would be comparable to Sinaloa. But I'll let Wayne add anything if I'm incorrect.
No, you are correct. There's 12 courts at Valley View. I think Hillside only has 9 courts, which would be a little less to do because I'll have to take out a couple of light poles, but we're not talking a whole lot. You could probably cut off 30, 40,000 onto that estimate. Most of the work is in the ground, like Dan said. The major thing is the underground conduits and how I have to cut the concrete to put these conduits in to get the fields lighted.
So it's not the location of infrastructure necessarily at the school that would change. It's no matter what, we're cutting concrete.
Well, I'm assuming the infrastructure at the school, there is none. I'm putting in all the infrastructure. I actually did a design for the lighting for Sinaloa to get an estimate because I didn't want to be short on my estimate. Yeah, it'll still be the same. We got to put the conduits in, we got to put the footings in, we got to buy the light poles, we got to buy the fixtures. It's a costly and a very difficult project to do once the concrete is already in place.
Other questions from board members?
Yeah, back to the funding. If we were theoretically to fund lighting for Sinaloa and the other 2 schools, would the school district be chipping in on that at all?
Director O'Brien, the school district has offered the courts to us at no charge. They may be able to chip in the lights if there was a benefit to their uses.
Right.
My analysis is there's no real benefit to them in the evenings. They use it during the day, so I would be hesitant to expect them to share in the cost of lighting.
Okay, yeah.
If I can just follow up on that, I mean, just so that it's clear to everyone, the school district already, by allowing us to use those courts, is essentially providing a benefit to our district at no cost. So they're actually contributing by providing the courts.
Correct, at no cost.
Just so the public and everyone else is aware of it.
Correct.
I'm thankful for that partnership and the school district being generous with the hours. And I see it, that's by opening it up just as it's already in the report, that's a lot more hours of court use, especially when it's not daylight saving time. But looking at the summer, that's a lot of hours on the weekends. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I have a question about that. Zach, have we explored, I know that they have offered us weekends and summer break. Have we explored the other times? Because there's a lot of other breaks in school, like Thanksgiving break, winter break, spring break. Those start to add up. Do you think if we asked, they'd be likely to be open to that, or?
My impression from our previous conversations, they'd be very willing to do that as long as it doesn't conflict with the school-based activity that was going on, which I'm sure you know, there's not very many things happening during those school breaks on campus. I would guess that the school district would be amenable to allowing us on those breaks to be on those courts.
And if we did that, how does it impact spending or the budget?
Well, going back to the essentially free use, our hard costs are really just the labor time to open and close the courts, the cost of the portable restroom, and the labor time to clean up the trash on the non-school days. So there is a minimal cost to operating these courts, but it's far less significant than some of these other projects that we're talking about.
Another question, how many courts do they have at Sinaloa, Hillside, and Valley View total?
So Valley View and Sinaloa have 12 courts, and Hillside has 9 courts. So that's 24 plus 9, 33.
So that's, if we did it even without the lighting, if we arranged with the school district to open all 3 of these schools at these times, that would open a huge number of pickleball courts at almost no cost to us.
Correct. The school has said that we could grow, you know,
Yeah.
open schools as the need arose. So
Yeah.
they've been open to that suggestion. Again, the cost would be similar with the labor and the
Yeah.
bathroom and the trash, but that would be kind of the agreement that we would look at with them.
There could be potentially 33 new pickleball courts at almost zip on cost.
That's correct, during daylight hours or non-school times.
That's really
yes.
hard to say no to.
Zach, how many indoor courts do we currently have, and do we anticipate in our current plans?
So we did open a indoor pickleball kind of open gym at Rancho Santa Su over the summer. To mixed results, there wasn't a huge turnout for those games. We'd be open to exploring that again if there was a need. We also have tentative plans with the activity center to potentially have either portable or semi-permanent, you know, kind of pickleball use on the futsal courts in the proposed kind of planning. So we could have potentially at any given time another 6 or 8 courts that could be in play, you know, on a scheduled basis when other activities aren't taking place at both indoor facilities.
I'm looking at those, right in this analysis. If it's indoor play, it's obviously beneficial when the weather's not cooperating, but it's also the hours. So if Sinaloa's open on the weekends and during the weekdays, we have 6 indoor courts coming up. And that's...
Yes, potentially. Now, your shared usage in the gymnasium with other sports, but we could carve out some time in each of those schedules for dedicated pickleball, both here when this facility's finished and right away, to some extent, at Rancho Santa Su, balancing all the needs of all the other sports that are currently taking place.
I'm thinking that it's the hours. So if schools' courts are not open because school's in session, then our gym is probably not being used very much because school's in session.
That's correct. High impact times are usually high impact times, and that's when kids are out of school and adults are off work. So the evenings and weekends are going to be your high use times for the majority of the community.
Chair, if I could.
I just want to clarify one thing on that. I understand what Chair Dennert's asking. The problem with that is, if I'm understanding the answer and the concept, knowing what the plans are for the activity center, is that realistically, we're not going to be able to dedicate entire evenings or every evening or anything like that to pickleball because indoors, because those courts at the activity center will have other uses, because not only is that prime time for pickleball, but that's prime time for other activities as well. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, and Chair, if I could, that was the point I was going to make, as I would anticipate that pickleball availability indoor would be more available in the morning time, because in the afternoon is when the kids aren't in school. So probably the afternoon and evening uses would be more youth oriented, and when the kids weren't in school would be the times that it would be more adult oriented.
My last question for now is, how are we doing versus neighboring communities?
So we did broach this briefly in our report back in September. If I recall, I might have it here. So if you look at Pleasant Valley, has 4 dedicated pickleball courts and 2 courts that are shared. So essentially 6 courts at any given time total for their district. Conejo Recreation and Park District has 8 dedicated courts and 4 shared courts, and they do offer a drop-in indoor, kind of similar to the Rancho Santa Su model that we were talking about. So you're talking about 10 courts total in Conejo. And in Moore Park, 4 dedicated courts and 4 shared courts. So you've got 8 total potentially in the city of Moore Park. So that was our analysis going into the first meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions from board? Josh?
Yes, I've got 2 questions. First one is, Dan and Zach, you said for Sinaloa, in question of that, you didn't necessarily need board action, but what about Valley View and Hillside?
No, I can assign those agreements administratively, so we wouldn't need board action to expand onto those courts.
Okay. So in the event that this Sinaloa does not resolve the issue, we could, in a timely manner respond to by adding Valley View and Hillside?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I had another question. In terms of each of these items, besides Sinaloa, I assume could happen fairly quickly, but I'd be interested in a rough timeline for each of these items, in and a guess on how quickly some of these could happen.
I think we'll have Mr. Nakaoka give us that estimate.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll give you a real quick answer here. Rancho Tapo, we can probably get it done between 45 and 60 days. It'd take about 30 days to order the fixtures and get them here. To have our crews install them, take about 2 to 3 weeks. That's optimistically.
I'm sorry, when did you include your bid time? Go on.
Well, Rancho Tapo, we wouldn't have to bid.
60,000?
Yeah. What it is, I'll be buying the fixtures, and then we'll just have maintenance installments to change out of the tenants.
Excellent. Thank you.
So it's pretty quick. Sinaloa, to add lighting to the 12 pickleball courts, you're probably looking at the better part of 18 months to 2 years to get it done.
Wayne, if I could add to that, we're also subject to a permitting process, probably through the State Department of Architects, and who knows how long that could take, because they'll have to approve that at the state level beyond our school district. So that probably doesn't include some of the permitting time, but it could, who knows?
Actually, I did add permitting time, and that's why it comes to 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
Probably take me probably a better part of 6 months to get a DSA permit. The last one, the conversion process, that one will be public bid. It'll probably be 60, 90, probably 120 days to get it completed.
That's for the Rancho Cini conversion from.
That's correct.
2 to 6.
Perfect. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? So we're going to move to public comment. Before we do that, I'm looking forward to any information that the public provides that they think that we need to make the best decisions. And for myself specifically, I would like to hear in that, how are we doing versus other communities currently? Ideas about youth clubs and classes. I do know about tournaments that have been held, but if there's plans for the future that are different than what's already happened. Because if we have all these courts, I would like to see that. I want feedback on dual use courts, because in here we have a duck pond changing them, but I want to know about dual use courts and how that works, the feedback. And then the lights at Rancho Tapo, we've had feedback on that, but if anyone has any other feedback. So as we go through public comments and we have cards, I'm going to listen carefully when we read the comments later. If anybody gives feedback on that, and if anybody fills out a card and has any items on that, I appreciate that too.
Can I add one
Yes, sir.
thing? Again, you have a 3-minute limit, so use your time how you feel. The one thing that I most would be interested in knowing is, from the pickleball community, is how much would the additional use of the Sinaloa courts, and if necessary, the hillside courts, how much would that help alleviate and solve the problem? Any thoughts you have on that? That's what I'm curious about. I will say this, answer any of Chair Dennard's questions. The thing I'm least impressed with hearing about of the list that Chair Dennard gave is how we're doing compared to other communities, because I expect our district to be better than other communities. So I don't judge us relative to others. I judge us in terms of what we can provide, which I would like to think is the best around. So, but the one thing I am curious about is how much does the pickleball community perceive that the additional use of the Sinaloa courts in particular would help the situation?
So I have the first public speaker card, and I'm going to call that. And then after that, I'll look around if there's anybody on Zoom that wants to speak. I'll look around for more cards, and we'll take our time and listen to everybody carefully. At the end of that, if somebody had sent in an email and they don't speak tonight, then we'll be reading those.
Yes, Chair.
And then once we close public comments, then we'll have a board discussion on those alternatives. So this first public speaker card I have is from Naveen. Naveen, when you come on, there's a microphone right there, it's already on. And you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Distinguished Chair Dennard, distinguished members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. Looking at this packet, it just shows how much passion there is in the community for both, pickleball and tennis. Me personally, my friends and I have been playing tennis for, about 15 years now. And we really enjoyed it. We've loved the facilities that the district has provided. I'm very grateful for that. I just wanted to point out that, most of our kids also take the RSRPD lessons, tennis lessons. Many of them enjoy the sport. And while the pickleball courts, pickleball is becoming a popular sport, taking away what we have existing does impact the future generation of our kids. So I think, we have a moral obligation to think about the future while we make decisions, especially when we have so many kids who want to play, the sport. While we promote tennis, pickleball, I also want us to, just consider not taking away what we already have from a tennis perspective. Just wanted to add that, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Did you have any feedback on painting it for dual use?
Yeah, I think the Rancho Tapo has that. It has worked well. It's first come, first serve basis. That's how we've always been playing. We respect one another. We play that. If that's an option, yeah, why not? We can consider that.
I have a question I'd like to ask.
Sure.
How do you feel like in any way tennis is getting gypped or anything like that? I mean, there's plenty of tennis courts for the amount of players that we have. I've been by them constantly. I mean, am I wrong on that?
See, it is because once you take away tennis courts, we have a long waiting game, and many people have different work schedules.
When was the last time you had? When was the last time you had to wait for a tennis court?
Mostly it's during the weekends.
Okay. And where was that?
It was at the Rancho. The Rancho, as well as the Wood Ranch, both of them. So we keep switching between the two.
And how long did you? When was the last time you had to wait on a weekend?
We probably the last 2 weekends we've had to wait.
For how long?
Probably an hour, because we have and then we have to time it according. And many people don't want to go away just after playing one set because they want to play longer.
And what and this was at Rancho Simi?
Yeah, Rancho Simi and Wood Ranch.
And what time of day was that?
It was in the morning around 8 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I see that there's a hand up on a screen that's not the same screen that's in front of me. Toggling to that. We're going to go to speakers on Zoom. but I'm just adjusting my Zoom site, make sure that I'm seeing that people are raising their hands. Dan, are you seeing them? I can see on that screen, but not
I
on.
can go next. I can go
Sure,
next.
if you choose to identify yourself, please go ahead.
Good evening, Chair and the distinguished board members and my fellow citizens. I know that as the earlier other speakers who have said, I think most of us, it's not just us, our kids truly enjoy playing tennis. I know that in the earlier discussion, the conversation were focused around the economics, what would it cost, what is the alternative and how best we all can do it. But I am one other person going to the court and waiting for long hours. And if you really do the math, our tennis courts are being reduced day by day. Again, I play both tennis as well as pickleball, and I know that like me and my friends, we enjoy the pickleball, but I think as other speaker rightly said, we all have a moral responsibility in encouraging our younger kids. Our kids are losing their opportunity. They have very limited time to really play the sport. Most of the time they are available in the evenings or over the weekends, and that is the time it exactly coincides with other pickleball players. I'm going to put in a request to this board. Please consider the usage of these courts and how much courts are being reduced from tennis to pickleball. We are changing the game, which is okay. Absolutely, we all can accept and adopt the newer sport. But nevertheless, we cannot limit the existing tennis, where Simi Valley kids have actually won several trophies across the California, and even recently there were Simi Valley High School kids won against Ventura County sport. Because these are the things that I think our board has to really focus, encourage. There are a lot of coaching camps that happen. These coaching camps can happen only after the school hours, and that's the exact time all the pickleball players also come in. And again, we are kind of going and managing it. I think, as a friendly community we all live in, but the kids are starting to lose interest. And that is my humble request to this board is to consider, and I think somebody also spoke about the Valley View. I know that there's been a substantial investment there on Valley View. I have not seen anybody playing any pickleball in the Valley View court. That court is sitting idle, and the times whenever we check with our other friends, they say the court is always locked. So I think we need to really do this balance. I'm going to request board one more time with the last person saying that let's compare against the number of tennis courts we have here in our community against the number of courts that we have of pickleball. We should really start to pay attention and help our younger kids.
Thank you. So I'm going to call on other people on Zoom, and I see other hands up. Dan, I see Raj, is that correct? Is that what you're seeing?
Guru, G-U-R-U is next here.
All right, Guru, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, board members, for the opportunity. I just want to, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just want to speak on behalf of the tennis players in the community. I have the same concern. I also wanted to provide some feedback on the multi-purpose use courts in Tapo Canyon, on the Tapo courts. So what I heard in the whole proposal is the lights being potentially upgraded for pickleball. Why is that not being considered for the tennis courts too? I think the Tapo courts also, the lights are pretty bad. And as we progress to the night and play, it gets harder. And the other thing that I've also noticed is the high school program for tennis. Many of high school kids come into the courts later in the evening, primarily because the schools don't have lights. And it's constantly creating conflict for tennis court availability for us. I mean, we work together with the kids and look for time overlaps. And there have been many instances where we have already seen us waiting for well over an hour sometimes to get courts for playing tennis. With regards to the multi-purpose courts and the dual lines that's been put up, I have a couple of comments. I'd also like the maintenance staff to go and take a look. I believe the courts and the concrete have deteriorated significantly on the multipurpose courts and making them almost unusable for tennis. I don't know if it is because of the nets, the portable nets, and then moving across many of the places the concrete has chipped so badly. When you try to play tennis after you open them up, those courts are hardly of any use. So we try to stick to the other two courts for the most part. That's also making it harder. And second reason I also would recommend not to do these multiple lines. With age not being an ally, we have huge difficulty with looking at the lines and having calls when we have dual lines. Tennis is a much faster sport than pickleball. Sometimes it gets very confusing for us which lines are we looking at, and that results in a lot of discomfort. I think this board is looking in the right direction to partner with the school board. There are so many football courts open there that are not being utilized. Instead of repurposing or creating new multipurpose courts, I would definitely recommend going down the alternate path of using the courts that the schools have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Raj would be next, Chair.
Raj?
Hey, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. And I kind of echo what the previous speaker just said. A good amount of investment has been made in building the pickleball courts, which we have in schools. It'd be a shame for us to not be able to utilize those while we put additional investment in other locations where we try to convert them or make them multi-use. And to be honest, I live pretty close to the Capo tennis courts, but honestly, every time I've been there, I've had to wait for a little longer. And there have been times when I shuttled between that location, Wood Ranch, and the Rancho Simi location. Off late, we've been kind of gravitating more towards the Rancho Simi location. But again, depending on the time of the day you go in the evening at 5 o'clock, sometimes it's tough to find courts. You can get lucky if you're there about 7 o'clock. But that's kind of one of the, I guess, timings when more people try and play tennis versus not. So just looking at traffic at a point in time might not give the right indicator or perspective on what the usage is. I definitely encourage us to look at the other investments which have been made in the city, in tennis courts or pickleball courts which are available, and explore those for usage, or maybe making a better awareness so the pickleball community is aware of the other options that are available that they can use if made available. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, who do you see is next?
Michelle Willer-Allred. If she wants to speak. Michelle?
Is it in her or to receive from artists? Now you want it to be seamless. For everything will be seamless, but that is not configured.
I don't know why my name was called. I didn't request to speak, so I don't know.
We're just calling people that are on the line that may wish to speak. Brent Neely is next, Chair. If you don't wish to speak, that's fine as well. If Brent wants to speak, now's the time. Okay. Steve Klein. Okay, Satish Shah.
Yes, thank you. Let me just go, not local, but in general, speaking, tennis is an old sport, has been going on for centuries, and we still have the same number of people playing tennis. Actually, from what I understand, we have 20% more tennis players this year than we did in 2019. So it is growing, not as fast as pickleball, but then pickleball is a new sport. So it's natural that it is moving fast. However, it being so new, we should not count on it to live as long as tennis is living. So what I'm trying to say is that it's okay to spend resources in getting pickleball courts. Probably not a good idea to construct new courts, but utilize the ones that are available. And do not sacrifice the tennis courts that we already have, because from what you have been hearing is that the tennis courts which are available are not sufficient at times. And I'm surprised that the Rancho Simi court, we are only considering converting courts, but not maybe sharing one court, one tennis court. If you share with pickleball, you can have 2 more pickleball courts for one tennis court, and that would be still shared. Not that I agree with that, because I think it is also difficult to use those lines like one speaker said. But worst comes to worst, that would be a good alternative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mathi, M-A-T-H-I, if you'd like to speak. Okay, Chair, the next person is Krishna, K-R-I-S-H-N-A, if you would like to speak. If not, that's fine as well.
Krishna?
Okay, Chair, the next is Saravanan, S-A-R-A-V-A-N-A-N-A. Saravanan would be next.
Yeah. Hey, are you able to hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so Saravanan, I think actually I echo whatever the previous people that they talked about on the tennis court. So I'm the person actually who plays the tennis for almost like 15 plus years in Simi Valley. And right now if you look at it, all our tennis courts has been converted, a few of our tennis courts has been converted into pickleball courts, and then it's kind of becoming so challenged for getting the court, and also as other person said, converting a tennis court into a pickleball court. It is very hard to see with multiple lines in there, and then also like the courts also getting damaged a lot. So I would like to get you to consider not converting the community park anymore to the pickleball court.
Thank you.
Sridhar, S-R-I-D-H-A-R.
Oh, thank you, Chair. You did give me an opportunity to speak. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Napa, N-A-P-A, Napa Balusu.
Hey, thank you. This would almost be like beating a dead horse. I totally resonate with the views expressed by everybody. I am a sports person. I've been playing sports for the last since whenever I knew, and it's becoming very frustrating to see that the tennis courts are being reappropriated for pickleball, and the 2 places that we used to play is both the Wood Ranch and Rancho Simi, and the waiting time and the loss of courts has been very frustrating. My son grew up playing it, I grew up playing it, and now we are having to face this situation. It's just my humble request, and I'm just echoing the sentiments of everybody that spoke before me, that you need to consider keeping the tennis community and the spirit of tennis alive by not reappropriating for pickleball, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Suresh, S-U-R-E-S-H, if you haven't spoken yet and would like to.
Yeah, if you can hear me,
it's the same thing, I'm a tennis player and I want to echo the same thing. And some of the tennis courts has been taken by the coaches on some peak hours. So if those courts are not available, we end up having very less courts. So especially I'm talking about in the Rancho Simi and the Wood Ranch. So if the coaching is happening there, we still have less courts to play with and more wait time. So my humble request is not to convert and keep the same courts.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
When you say the coaching, are you saying that you're talking about tennis lessons taking place, taking up the courts? Am I right on that?
Yes.
Is that happening during peak hours?
Yes, I send them Saturday morning 9 o'clock and also on evenings during the weekdays.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sivalyar, Sivalyar.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Board. I pretty much echo all the sentiments already spoken by the tennis players. Couple of points to add is, what are we trying to achieve here, right? We're trying to achieve two things. One, we wanted to give more time to pickleball players. But what I hear from all the people spoken before is we do have a lot of pickleball courts that are not being used. So I'm not sure why we cannot route those people to those existing pickleball courts instead of trying to convert the existing tennis courts. And next thing is converting tennis courts and pickleball the same courts, playing two sports is, again, I'm echoing the sentiment of the 2 or 3 speakers saying the same thing, like lines and are very confusing for tennis players. It's a slightly faster sport, and also it is damaging the existing tennis courts. So thank you for the opportunity.
What do you mean by it's damaging the existing courts?
The balls are different, right? It is the plastic ball, and it is chipping out. I have seen a lot of chips comes out of the paint, and it is not as soft as the tennis balls.
Thank you.
This is Guru. I just spoke earlier on the same thing. I would request the board actually to go and examine the multipurpose codes.
Guru, you already spoke, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So that would give you a good idea on what the issue is. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Al?
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
I've got an Al chair. Al Leichmann.
Yeah. Thanks, board. Thanks for the opportunity. Food for thought here, right? So I'm a tennis player. I myself play about 5 to 6 hours a week, and I take my kids to coach them. They are 8 and 10. They're just taking lessons in a private court, and then I take them at least about 3 to 4 hours every week. So just myself, I'm using the tennis courts for about 10 hours a week. And every time I go take my kids, sometimes I have to wait for about an hour with them, right? They have the school, they go to the school, they come, they do the homework, and then I try to squeeze in this tennis coaching, after their hours. So I still have to, sometimes I get to wait for, 30, anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour or so, right? And another thing is, there are only, if you look at it, number of tennis courts in Simi is about like 16 tennis courts, right? 4 in Tapo, and 6 in Simi, and then 6 in Madeira. And then if you look at the pickleball courts, you got about 12, and then now you have the opportunity to scale out using the school district, which is like we're looking at 33 pickleball courts. That's huge. And then if you open this up, the 33, it's easy for you to scale out without doing an investment, even putting the lights on, just using the daylight, right? And then you could scale in if there are not many users, and then you have an opportunity to do that, and you're not taking away the tennis courts. And there is an opportunity, so I would want the board to consider that opportunity to use it without taking this tennis court away from the tennis patrons.
I have a question. When and where was the last time that you had to wait an hour for a tennis court?
I did even on Monday at here at the Tapo. On Monday I had to wait for about an hour with Monday evening.
About what time?
About 7:30 to 8:30.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Or the last one I see here as being distinct is the iPhone with the letters.
It's 2021 where we call out into the void, iPhone with the letters.
Hey, this
Yes.
is Rajan. That's me, the iPhone.
You have it's your turn to speak. Just for the record, if you choose to, what was your name?
Rajan, R-A-J-A-N.
Thank you. It's your turn.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I echo all the same thoughts. I don't want to be a broken record here. So definitely save tennis and save tennis for the kids. The younger generation is already doing the all virtual digital gaming. So I would like definitely the crowd playing pickleball is more like a seniors and mid-levels people. So definitely we need the save the tennis courts for the younger generation for the opportunity to play. They don't want to come because they don't have less patience when they come here. No tennis court, they just disappear and then do other things. So I would like definitely want more tennis courts. And also I regularly play in Rancho Simi Tampo Canyon Park, the Lemon Drive Park. The lights are always very bad compared to the other parks. So I would definitely request you also to upgrade the lights. I heard in the initial you are saying that you can upgrade only the pickleball court. And definitely put a request to upgrade the lights in the 11th park as well, tennis courts as well. And thank you for the opportunity and thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't see any more. If there's others that want to speak, you'll probably want it out in Zoom world.
So we're going to call
We're
on
gonna-
speakers
we're just
in
doing
person in a minute. We're just going to check anybody else on Zoom. All right, before I start calling speakers, Zach, could you get a speaker card to the person that just raised their hand? I'm going to call on Scott. Scott, fill out a speaker card. As Scott comes to the microphone, I just want to thank everybody for waiting to speak. There was many people that came here tonight. We appreciate your participation and giving us information that we need to make the best decisions for the public. So thank you for sitting through our meeting and waiting for your turn. Scott, it's your turn.
Thank you very much for letting me talk to you. And I just want to follow up from the last meeting. There were some questions asked me, and someone about the USTA leagues. I talked to the USTA now, and they are having 3 teams now playing out of Rancho Simi because Wood Ranch is completely full. So there will be an overflow, and that will be starting in February. So there'll be 3 USTA teams playing out there. We had the same information about the kids. I don't want to rehash that. The new data I do have is from 2019 to 2020, tennis increased to 21.64 million players. From 2020 to 2021, another 2.96 million players joined tennis. So tennis right now is almost at the same level as pickleball. So it's not tennis decreasing, pickleball is increasing very fast, and tennis is gradually continuing to increase. It's actually the 4th most growing sport in the United States. So I don't need to rehash everything else. If somebody had a question about USTA stuff, I'd be glad to answer it. If you don't, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
I do have a question. I was
Sure.
just saying if anybody else did.
Go for it.
Dual use. Can you give me feedback on that?
Don't like it because we had it. I belong to Sunset Hills Country Club. We had 2 dual-use courts. We had so much difficulty with it that we actually took one back away to make it back to tennis. If we need to, I would get it because there is such demand for pickleball. I think if we did it, most USG is on courts 4 through, actually they use 5, 6, 3 courts on the backside would be 8, 7, and 6. 1 and 2 are mainly teaching courts, and then like the pickleball, if you want to make those dual use, I guess like on Saturdays when we teach there, the park says we can live with it.
You can live with it where?
I think if we took courts 1 and 2 at Rancho Simi and we did them dual use, because those are mainly used for teaching, I could see where that would kind of work out. I know on Fridays and Saturdays the parks use it. I contract to use those courts on weeknights, so it would not bother me that much. If it's a necessity, I'd like it. Ideally, if not to do it, because it does make it very difficult for anybody else to use it. The lines get very, very confusing.
And then my other question for you is, many young people play tennis. Have you seen any movement towards them playing pickleball?
That's a really tough one. I have not looked at what pickleball is doing. I don't really see a ton of youth in pickleball. It seems, actually a major growing portion of pickleball, believe it or not, are people leaving the tennis world with hip and leg injuries and moving into pickleball. Youth, it doesn't seem to have caught on yet. Tennis in youth is growing rapidly. I haven't seen pickleball, but I'm sure it is. I just don't see it. I'm at Rancho Senior. I don't see a lot of kids playing pickleball. I see a lot of kids playing tennis.
Thank you.
Let me
Oh,
ask-
there is a question.
I have a couple questions
Sure.
about that. So when you say that tennis is, I'm really not concerned about 21 million
Yeah.
people.
It's just not a museum anymore, like somebody mentioned in the last meeting.
I'm more concerned about locally. So when you say that tennis is growing among youth, I just want to address that first. What age range are you talking about?
Well, if you look at our Saturday mornings with the Parks and Recreation, those courts are completely packed, and those are 4 to 6 and then 8 to 12, and both teaching courts are full with the kids. I don't teach those classes, but I'm familiar with them. They're more full, so we got 16 kids showing up on Saturday mornings, all from 8 to 12, 4 to 12. I basically teach kids. I teach a few adults, but I mainly teach kids, and I'm booked full. I have no room for any more kids. Simi High School likes to use those courts. They mainly use Tapple courts. They come out and practice there. I think it would be really nice, before we make a decision, if you do talk to 2 high school coaches, because they do use them a lot.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you one more thing. So you're out at the courts a lot, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I've checked out the courts a lot, and I know what I see out there. And you seem
Were
like
you there tonight?
You seem like a really straight. Well, I'm here tonight.
Okay.
You seem like a really straight shooter. So I want to ask you a question. Forget the percentage of how much this is increasing or that's increasing. You would certainly agree that pickleball, forget the age ranges right now, but pickleball universally, locally here, has become more popular by far than tennis.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But I will also say, if you look at who's at pickleball right now, like this evening, most of those people are coming from Thousand Oaks. It's not coming from Simi. We're bringing in people outside district. Actually, Simi is one of the greatest growing pickleball facilities around. But they're coming in from outside to in. We're not coming from in here and growing. The tennis people are from here. A lot of pickle people.
Well, these are public parks.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying if you're
People
looking
come
at serving community, I don't think you should take away from the community tennis players to add for out-of-community pickleball players. That's my point. It's not a museum thing. Whoever said that last meeting, I was very annoyed by that. Thank you.
We appreciate your time and you coming out. I have another speaker card from Mr. Krishnan. Anyway, you get to the microphone, if you could correct me on your first name, it's important to me.
Hello, thank you, board members. Name is Uni Krishnan, and I just want to add few comments. I have a 6-year-old who started playing tennis with the RSRPD program, and it's a great program. He moved up to the next level, and he's been playing for almost a year, and all the classes that he has been to, it's like 12 kids mostly playing at a time, an hour-long sessions, and that sessions takes 2 courts, right? Whether it's in Wood Ranch or in Tech Park, it's always 2 courts taken, and there are other private lessons that book through Park District that's been occupied also. So the number of courts that other players can use at that time is also reduced. So that's one. I play 3 days a week. I play tennis. And, Wood Ranch, we don't go anymore because, it's because always it's full on a weekday. And weekends, same thing, we used to play in the mornings, weekends there. We don't go there anymore. We play on Eringer Duck Park because most likely we get a court there if we go at 7 o'clock. Again, on the weekends, there are RSRPD programs, tennis lessons happen, that occupies, again, 2 courts on weekend mornings there. And so I request the board to look at the kids that are going through the program, number of kids, and those kids need to practice, because I take my son to practice. So obviously, if one session for one age group has 12 kids, definitely their parents would like to take them and practice more because they are interested in the sport. So, request you to take a look at it. It's exciting to see pickleball popularity going. I like that. I generally like sports, so any sports for that matter. It's nice to see people getting involved rather than sitting at home watching TV, or kids getting stuck with the devices or gaming and stuff like that. So that's my request. Take a look at the kids who are learning tennis. So that let's not take away what we have. Let's find a way without taking away tennis courts, and find a way to help out the growing popularity of pickleball. Thank you.
How old is your son who plays tennis?
He's 6.5.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more public speakers that are here in person tonight? Reasons the excuses for my late.
First, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I urge the board not to make a decision prior to reading the report which we submitted to the board. The report is 30 pages, maybe plus. Everything is with statistics, numbers, and facts. And there are very important things, because the picture and what I'm listening here, I discover something, I'm seeing something which is completely different.
Maxim, can you speak into the microphone a little bit more?
Excuse me?
Can you speak into the microphone more?
Yes. And to begin with the school pickleball courts, 33 of them. The schools built 33 courts for 2,000 people. All three schools have 2,000 people, okay? And the same school kids, they could play in the park courts if they wish, if they're available. Now, how are the arrangements between the park and the school districts? They're based on agreement dated 1988 and memorandum of understanding which is not dated and not signed by both parties. That is to begin with. Second, if that was so easy to have the courts available any time of the day from 4 to evening, from 7 to 7, why they're not available now? Okay? They're not available because it's neither easy, neither practical, neither it will happen. I would like to address your attention to Exhibit F in the paper which we provided.
We will do that. You have about a minute left.
Excuse me?
You have about a minute left. Each speaker gets about 3 minutes.
Okay, now if you want to address the issue, you either will allow me a little bit more time, and please, I would like to go over certain things,
Well,
to start with cost.
I just want to, Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes?
We have to be fair to everyone. Everybody gets the same amount of time. I just have to say that as a board member. We have the paperwork that's provided, but you have to stay within the time.
Yes, okay. So, I calculated the cost. The cost is about $20,000 for the park to pay to have this facility, and just for the current use, which is 2 times a week, 3 hours, altogether 6 hours per week. That is the current use. All the other things do not exist yet. So, let me go item by item.
Max, we won't have time for that, but if there's a part you want to direct our attention to.
Okay, the last thing, at least you could look here, because the picture shows the whole story. This is last Saturday. All 12 courts were full in Sinaloa. All 6 courts were taken here by the pickleball players, and all courts, I took to picture, which are the tennis court were taken, by the pickleball players playing.
We will keep that in mind, thank you.
Okay?
Are there any other public speakers? Anyone else wish to speak? I see a hand, come on up. Before you begin, I'm just telling you that the reason we keep it to 3 minutes is just to give a chance for everybody to speak. I do know that sometimes we have more information to share. That's why we read any emails that are sent in to us. We pause the meeting to make sure we could read through the packet before. And we go through this process slowly to make sure everybody has a chance. If you choose to, can you identify yourself? And then you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, Victoria Morales. I'm gonna try to stay organized, but so just some comments about Sinaloa. Like, what is the board gonna do now? Like, if you open them, they don't help for the winter play. I go every day at 5:30. We have to start using the paddle system. You can play a game to 11 points and you get forced and kicked off the court and you have to rotate. So how does that help the situation now? At 5:30, which is still the beginning of prime time when people get off work, because usually it gets even more and more busy and it's busy till 10 o'clock at night. What are we doing now to help the situation in the winter time so that we can play and be able to play more than one game without having to get kicked off courts? The courts are very busy in the morning at Tapo and Rancho Simi, and Sinaloa doesn't help with that because when the school is in session. Also regarding middle schools, Valley View and Hillside are not desirable because they face east-west and not north-south. So when there's no lighting, you can only play during the day, so the sun is always going to be in your eyes. And again, 33 courts only offered at the same amount of time doesn't help because there's no variety of time. I also, another issue I think with, someone mentioned that on Saturdays the tennis courts are full at Rancho Simi for lessons. That's true, I have seen them. But usually the back courts are all empty. And
Can you say that again? I don't understand.
I've gone several times to Rancho Simi on the Saturday, and they do have lessons for the children, but there aren't people playing recreationally in the back, 3 courts. I don't know what that is, 6, 7, 8. They're usually free, or there's very few times where the courts are all busy with recreational players. The courts are full with the tennis lessons. Also, when lessons are provided for tennis, or usually only take up 2 courts. There's still 4 available courts, usually open for open play. For pickleball, when there's a class, all 6 courts are occupied, so people who want to have open play cannot play at Rancho Simi. And I think when I was here for a prior meeting, someone mentioned that Royal had tennis courts that were supposed to allow for public play. I don't know if this is true, but basically I heard that it's very hard for the public to use those courts. And how is that not potentially going to be an issue for pickleball players if we, only are allowed to use school courts?
Victoria, you're coming close to your time. Can you finish it up?
I just also want to say, pickleball is not only for retired people. There are youth who play it. I see young people playing all the time. I see people with their parents, families playing. Kids are also being taught pickleball in school because they do have these courts in the middle school as part of the gym curriculum. So the youth is going to start, is playing and will only increase. And if this becomes, more popular sport, competitive sports, the schools might have competition teams. They're going to use those courts for the school kids and not use it for the public.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak tonight? Josh, you see anybody on Zoom? Not seeing. Thank you. Not seeing anybody else. We're going to go to board discussion of these
Chair,
items.
if I could, I've got a few.
Oh yes. Do you have should we hand them out and share the responsibility to read them?
No, I've got 4, and 2 of the 4 that I have had opportunity to speak tonight,
Okay.
Napa and Maxim. So I've got 2 short ones that we received later this afternoon that are policies.
Will you go ahead and read those?
Sure. Get 3 of these won't take. Annika Mishar. Dear Board of Directors, I'm writing to request more pickleball courts at the Duck Pond Park. I love pickleball and it's the most wonderful game to play. I'm a single pickleball player, therefore the Duck Pond is the only closest park where I can play. However, every time I go there to play pickleball, I have to wait or leave the courts altogether without playing due to the lack of availability of the courts. Plus, the tennis courts are always empty or there are 1 or 2 courts being used. I get very frustrated and sad, especially when I have to leave the park without being able to play. Please, please, please give us more pickleball courts. The second email is from Nancy Leahy. I've read the proposal regarding 2 more courts at Herringer and Royal possibly being converted into more pickleball courts. This is so disturbing to me. Please don't let this happen. In Simi Valley, we are already limited to where we can play tennis. Those 2 courts are primarily used for lessons, which takes precedent over the public being able to play on them. This will mean out of the 4 remaining tennis courts at the Duck Pond Park, 2 will turn into lesson courts, which will only leave us 2 courts for recreational play. At this point, we're always having to wait for a court to open, or once we're on the court, others are waiting for us. I can't stress enough how frustrating this can be, not to mention people getting angry at times. Tennis means so much to us. This is our safe zone where we're able to get out of the house and socialize. Now more than ever, this is needed to continue to live healthy lives. We continue to keep and maintain our existing tennis courts to allow this wonderful community to play the game they love. I appreciate your attention to this matter.
Thank you. Ed?
Chair Dennett, can we take a break?
Yes, we're going to take a break and then have our board discussion. It's 8:27 right now. We'll be back at 8:32. Back from our break. I have one more speaker card and I'll call one more time on people on Zoom if you'd like to speak. We're going to go with in person. We have Vicki who's going to come up to the microphone to speak. She's going to press the button because I think it's off. If it's light up red like this one, then you're good.
Thank you.
One more time.
Thank you, Honorable Board Directors. I just would like to say a few things about pickleball and your recommendations on the alternatives. Number 1 is okay in the sense of extending additional opportunities for pickleball, but the reality is it's going to be a long-term project and it will not actually happen within the immediate future. So that is a definite concern. That's number 1. On number 3, I would suggest that you move forward on that. Number 4, I would say that also is another recommendation that is doable and also affordable. Number 6, I would like to recommend that you actually do look at new construction of pickleball courts. There is enough land in some of the parks currently that could be created if you need fundraising opportunities to do that. I think there's opportunities for tournaments, Simi Valley tournaments of residents only, and even outside tournaments to include the surrounding communities. And then in addition, I would like to suggest that staff really look at Rancho Madera. There are 6 tennis courts, 4 on one side and 2 separated, and to actually make those 2 courts pickleball courts. I do play often at various parks, and quite frankly, the tennis courts are not always busy. Perhaps they are at 7 o'clock in the evening or after school hours, but certainly in the morning they are not. The other thing I would like to make a comment about in regards to some misinformation, there's a lot of youth that are playing pickleball. There's a lot of families that are playing. More and more you see parents, kids, grandkids playing pickleball. It has become a family activity because everybody can play and it's really easy to pick up, and I just think that is something that is really unusual, that you can actually see families coming out and playing. Last week I played, there were grandparents, I know it was Thanksgiving weekend, but there were grandparents, parents, and grandchildren playing. It was absolutely great to see, and that's something that I think we should be proud of. As far as the dual use courts, I think they're the last resort, but they're not a good idea. But it is a last resort. The portable nets do chip the paint off the courts. Some of the courts are in need of repair, which again, I know costs money, but it is absolutely, there are some chip and fall hazards on some of the courts. There are seams on some of the courts from where you can tell tennis court fences or nets were actually removed, but there wasn't really a good enough resurfacing job. And then the last thing is the lights at Rancho or Duck Pond, whatever you guys call it, absolutely.
We call it Rancho City.
Okay, Rancho
Well,
City.
everybody else calls it the Duck.
Right, excuse me. But the lights do need to be upgraded. I did notice that recently they put some of the pigeon, whatever you call those wires, but only on one court, not on all the courts. And over at Tampa Canyon, the lights are just not good enough. It's unsafe to really play late at night. So
Thank you.
just wanted to make those comments.
I have one question.
Sure.
So I've been on this board now for 5 years. This is by far the most discussed topic of any, pickleball tennis. And I'm a little bit stunned at what I've seen here tonight. For the first time at any of these meetings, in terms of participation and attendance, tennis has basically kicked pickleball's butt. Where is everybody?
I have no idea, but that is why I decided at the last minute to speak up, because I do know that people send emails, okay? But I am surprised that so many tennis players have spoken up. And actually, I'm very familiar with tennis and USTA, and since COVID, tennis has has definitely increased in participation because it has been safe to play by County Health as singles first, and now recently doubles. So I am very familiar with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak? You can unmute yourself, say your name if you please, and you have 3 minutes. And then anybody else in person? Josh, Dan, you're not seeing anybody, are you?
I am not.
We definitely don't rush here. We want to get all the information we can to make good discussions and decisions. I'm going to start off by telling everyone, if they don't know, I've played a significant amount of pickleball. I haven't played lately because I moved on to other recreational activities, but I see that it builds community. I do know that people of different ages play. I would like to see more young people play and become competitive, leagues, tournaments, like tennis is for high school students. I would like to see that one day in our community, and I think that we could build the resources for them to be able to do that. I do, Ed, you're right. When this topic comes up, people show up, they write emails, they get involved. And I like that because they're trying to find ways and solutions, speaking out because they want to exercise, and it creates community. So I have fun when we're able to come up with some good solutions that help people out. I look forward to that. And before we get into a lot of details, I'm not interested in taking away courts from anybody. I am interested in the classic value of sharing. I am interested in if we need to build more courts for a growing sport, that we need to find out how to do that. So that's going to drive some of my thoughts is I don't want to take away from one to give to another, but if we need to expand or share better, I'm interested in that too. I do have a question for staff before we get into that discussion. Zach, you might be able to answer it. It's about scheduling and lights. So we listen to the public before we make all of our decisions, and I thought adding lights would be a really good idea, but I'm hearing it would be an improvement, but I'm not sure if it works towards our solution. So the question I have for you is the person that has to put together a sharing schedule and direct and create classes, if we put lights at Rancho Tahoe, which some people call Lemon Park, does that help you at all in that, to be able to say, you can't offer classes here tonight, but you can offer it over there because, well, you've got good lights? Or does it put you in the exact same starting point?
If I am understanding the question correctly, I think the courts are dictating the use as much as the lights are. Now, I would argue that, similarly to some other people, that the lights at Rancho Cini are better, brighter, and therefore probably make the argument that they could be deemed as safer. The ones at Tapo are the old bulbs, I believe, still, which still produce light and were the standard for very many years, but compared to the LEDs, they're not as bright. So I can clearly see the difference, but I don't know that the addition of more lights creates more flexibility in scheduling, if that's your question.
Yeah. I'm asking because one of the things we've heard is it's classes. That classes are creating some of the conflict. I just didn't know if that made it easier for you to schedule classes to direct them to one location versus another.
Correct. So, I mean, for your knowledge and maybe for the discussion, I did bring the class schedule so you can kind of understand that a little bit. If you'd like, I could, tell you what that is. Basically, pickleball Wednesday nights and Saturday evenings at Rancho Cini are pickleball lessons. They are provided by the district. They're very popular. They fill up immediately. By immediately, we open registration at 12 o'clock, and by 12:05 a.m., these classes are mostly full for beginning instruction, those introductory type of classes.
For tennis or for pickleball? For
pickleball. They are popular introductory lessons.
And that's Wednesday nights and Saturday nights?
And Saturday evenings at Rancho Cini. That's when traditionally most of our staff or instructor taught classes take place. That leaves the other evenings of the week free for public or community use.
If those are at Rancho Cini, they're happening on basically dedicated pickleball courts, though, correct?
That's correct. Currently, they're on the pickleball courts, those lessons. As for tennis, Rancho Madera, 5 days a week, has lessons from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Beginner, introductory, or intermediate, and advanced. Children and adults. So Rancho Madera is probably our biggest tennis facility that is highly impacted by tennis every day of the week. We also have Saturday lessons at Rancho Cini on courts 1 and 2 in the morning, so that does impact morning play at Rancho Cini from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So those are the two times when staff run or instructor-led classes are really impacting those courts. So any time outside of that is mostly free for public play. I can tell you we're through some requests by the pickleball community, we are starting a Sunday morning league that would house organized play. It will also leave courts open for drop-in use as well at that time. So we made a point to make sure that was also available to the public.
You said Sunday morning?
Correct. We're going to try that starting in the after the new year in January. We're going to try that.
What location?
That'll be at Cini as well, Rancho Cini.
Why did you choose that location if Sinaloa is likely to be open?
We didn't have a decision tonight. We could certainly look at other options or move that league. That would totally be an option if we activate Sinaloa.
Thank you.
Well, again, I just have to say, you don't need us to activate Sinaloa, but there's no board decision there. If it's good work if we've got the school district helping us out, but you can just do it.
Can you turn your mic on?
You don't need us to, thank you. You don't need us to activate the Sinaloa courts. There's no board decision involved in that. It's good work to have worked with the school district to get those available. To me, that's a no-brainer. Now, whether that's going to help the situation is another issue, but there's no harm in trying it, and there's really nothing there that requires board action or that should be foreclosing that from happening.
And the reason I ask is not for an immediate league that might begin in a month or two, but if we decide to make dual-use courts I wouldn't want to see the dual-use courts being used for pickleball on Sunday morning. If there's 12 courts at Sinaloa, they're open from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. That takes away from tennis. But we might not decide to do dual-use courts anyway, so that's why I drive at that and keep asking. Board members, do you have any questions for staff?
No questions, just one.
Elaine?
On the alternatives, first I want to say I turn my mic.
Yeah, move it a little.
Turn on the microphone, Elaine.
And move a little closer, Elaine. Just so keep going.
I think we've got a great relationship with the school district, and I'm not sure how it's going to relieve a lot of the tension, but it does provide more courts here in Simi Valley than in Caneo or Pleasant Valley. I mean, and I do believe people are coming here. But I would like to see the Sinaloa courts used on the schedule that you provided, that you worked out with the school district. And before we went to Hillside or Valley View, I'd like to see how the use of those courts at Sinaloa, how it's going if people use them. I know that they're asphalt, and so that might make a difference. But when I go by there on Saturday morning, they are being utilized. So I think that's great. I don't want to put any money into lights at Sinaloa until we get a better feel for how the use is. It's a major expenditure, and if we're going to make an expenditure, I'd rather make it on district property. I'd like to really emphasize to change the lights at Rancho Tapo. If they're not good, then people are not going there, and people are not utilizing or enjoying them. And I would like to see the lights changed at Rancho Tapo, and maybe while we're doing it, finding out what the cost would be for the tennis as well as the pickleball. I'm not really interested in converting any more tennis courts at Rancho Simi. I know that Rancho Madera is really, those tennis courts are really used a lot. I observe that. But I think we do have to respect the tennis players, and they're such two different kinds of sports, where you have tennis as maybe singles or doubles. On pickleball, you have group play and round robin, and it's just quite different. So it does appear that the tennis courts maybe are not utilized as much as the pickleball people think, but it's a whole different kind of use thing. So I personally, with the opening up of Sinaloa and installing better lights at Rancho Tapo, that would be my direction.
Josh, I haven't heard from you in a little bit, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. And as you're getting your mic unmuted, Elaine, I do echo your opinion that we're thankful for their partnership with the school district and how much they've done to provide for our community. I appreciate them too. Josh?
There's definitely an echo in here. I would also echo the school district thing, and that I would say also I don't really see value in the second alternative of installing lights. I think it would be, that amount of money would be better spent investing in Park District property itself. I have no issue. I don't think it's as urgent with the timing because of upgrading lights at Rancho Tapo, but I think it would be a good thing to do in the near future. I'm honestly, I feel fairly flexible when it comes to Rancho Simi and whether it's multi-purpose or conversion. The conversion, I see the point of like, you're kind of taking the same square footage, but you're also for tennis and pickleball, but you're able to, accommodate some of the, use for pickleball and have more players there. And then I think I lean a lot more proactive than some of the comments I've heard so far in not just expanding use and making it as soon as possible for Sinaloa, but also for potentially Valley View. That I would see Valley View as a good overflow from Rancho Tapo, which I have seen on weekend mornings. That I think my general perspective is that pickleball and tennis have prime hours where you have overflow, and that's when you're getting large time. Where I take fairly regular walks through all of these locations, and I think in prime hours they're overflowing. But I also see in walks through that there's plenty of prime hours in the evening, not prime hours, but alternate hours in the evenings, in some afternoons on weekends, where it's not overcrowded or where both pickleball and tennis have been empty. And that's not to say neither of the sports are popular or that they're growing, but I think we just have a capacity issue. And I hear a lot of people talking about wanting investment in future courts and all that, and I think that's great, but there's also pressure to do something right now, and those are contradictory. That we can make long-term investments, but if we want to do short-term, I think that's the short and medium-term timeline. I think we need to work with the school district, expand those, and even if there's concern about some of those courts being east-west or not perfect, I don't think we need to look for perfect. I think we need to look for utility. And if some players are willing to play on those courts, I think we'll figure that out in due time. And I play pickleball too, and is it fun to have the sun in your eyes when you're playing? No, but you alternate sides and you play, and I think there may be more casual players who are willing to go to the middle schools for casual play for the community, rather than people who are just in it for extreme sport.
Zach, or Josh, I think that was the first time I've heard pickleball as an extreme sport, but I like it. Zach,
engaged.
Yeah. Zach, I had a question about classes for young people in pickleball. How's that going?
So I think our demographics skew older for introductory lessons still. I will kind of reiterate, I do see a little bit of youth play. The schools made these courts to teach it as part of the PE curriculum, so there is a growing kind of impact on youth playing this sport. But I would say that dominantly in the lessons is the adult age kind of participants that we're seeing right now. We're not getting a ton of youth lessons for pickleball, beginner or intermediate kind of classes.
Other board member comments? Yep. Ed? Then Kate.
You ready to go? Okay. So I have a number of things. I have to say, and it's one of the reasons why, although sometimes I don't know that we follow it quite to the detail that we should, but why we try to refrain from making board member comments until we've heard from the public, because it's rare, because I do my homework, I do my preparation, I take everything into account, and I come here with an idea of what I'm going to recommend. But I always like to keep an open mind and be flexible and know that I may change and deviate from what I thought I was going to recommend. And tonight that happened. So I want to explain a few things, and some of you have heard some of this before. I grew up, I played 3 years of varsity tennis at Royal. The tennis courts at Rancho Simi were my home, like after school in the evenings and on the weekends. And I do have to say, I feel like I'm a parent talking to a child here, but I feel like people have to toughen up. I played tennis under this kind of lighting that's worse than the lighting at Rancho Tapo back in the late 70s in high school, and it may not be as ideal as the lighting that we have in other places, but I played tennis at night with worse lighting than that, and worse court conditions and the types of things that we have now. And the point I want to make is that it's not just a question of building new courts here or building new courts there. we have a limited budget here at the Park District. And you may have heard during public comments, we had someone from the BMX community that spoke to us and made a request, a very expensive BMX track that they want, which is also a popular sport. We've had requests to add sand volleyball courts. We constantly have requests for more soccer fields. So we have a budget that we're working with, and we can't do everything, not even close. And so we have to be responsible in terms of how we spend that money. We just can't do everything. We'd love to, but it's not possible. And so it is important. We do have to look at what gets used the most. We do have to look at what is the most popular. And a tennis court that sits idle most of the time is not always necessarily the best use of our district property and of our district funds. Now, having said that, there's a few things during public comment that have changed my perspective on some things in terms of what I've learned tonight. One, it is true, likely pandemic related and limited activities related, but there has been at least somewhat, if not a great, but at least somewhat of a resurgence in tennis because of the pandemic and because of restrictions and in terms of what you can do. I can also say that we've had publicly noticed meetings before, and this is the first time at any of those meetings that I've seen more passion from people who prefer tennis than people who prefer pickleball. But those two things by themselves do not make up for the fact that I'm out there a lot, I check these things out a lot, that pickleball is far more popular, it utilizes our facilities far more than tennis does. However, there is one compelling note that does shift my view tonight, and that is the fact that tennis is the more youth-oriented sport. And we serve the entire public. We serve youth, we serve adults, we serve seniors. We serve everyone that we possibly can. But I think we all have an understanding that the youth is our future. And the fact that there is an interest among youth and an increasing interest among youth and a utilization from youth of our courts weighs heavily on my recommendation and my decisions tonight. My original recommendation was going to be that we convert two of the tennis courts, two of the remaining tennis courts on the one side of Rancho Simi into 6 pickleball courts. Based on everything that's happened tonight, and particularly the youth aspect, I cannot in good conscience make that recommendation tonight. I have a feeling that ultimately, in the years to come, we're headed in that direction. That just seems to be the direction that we're headed. But in terms of everything I've heard tonight, I just can't see going there. The problem that I have with just paying over $60,000, and I know how this is going to go, it's going to wind up being more than that. But anyway, paying over $60,000 to improve the lighting at Rancho Tapo, I have a problem with that because I see that as money that we're ultimately going to be paying either to convert courts or build new courts somewhere down the road, which is ultimately going to be the more desirable option. The fact of the matter is the Rancho Tapo courts do get used at night. They're not as desirable. I believe they are safe, and if they're not safe, then I played unsafe tennis for decades. So I find that hard to believe. So I can't support a recommendation. Well, I can't even. I won't even address the $300,000 to spend on lights at Sinaloa Middle School. That wasn't even ever a consideration for me. But knowing where I think this is ultimately heading, I can't support a recommendation to spend money on the lighting at Rancho Tapo. I don't really know how much good it's going to do, but where we are currently, I think the best idea is to give it a shot and see if the additional pickleball court usage at Sinaloa makes a difference. Because it's not really peak hours, I don't know that it's going to make much of a difference. I don't know that it's going to change the equation. I have a feeling we're going to be back where we are right now in 6 months or in a year with the same discussion, because I have a feeling it's not going to solve the problem. And I do think ultimately where we're headed is either building new courts or converting courts. But based on everything I've heard tonight and taking everything into account, including the fact that even though I grew up a tennis player, I understand that pickleball has just dominated tennis in recent years. And I've voted that way in the past. I strongly encouraged, I highly recommended, and I fought to have to have 2 of those tennis courts made into 6 pickleball courts at Rancho Simi. And at the time, I even thought we maybe should have done all 4 and converted them into 12. But that was then, and this is now. And based on everything I've heard tonight, I can't recommend at this point that we turn, even though I thought that was going to be a recommendation, I can't recommend that we convert 2 additional courts into 6 pickleball courts at this time, even though if I had to put a bet on it, I think that's kind of where we're headed in the future. So for me, at this point, even though it isn't usually the way I like to go, I don't like to delay the inevitable. I think the right thing to do at this point would be to give it a shot with the use of the pickleball courts on at the schools, and be appreciative that the school district has allowed us to do that. But at this point, I wouldn't spend any more money anywhere else without further knowledge of how that works out, because I think that money is ultimately going to be spent on the conversion of courts or the addition of courts.
Okay. Well, I think that number 1, using the Sinaloa Middle School courts and possibly later Valley View and Hillside, I think it's a no-brainer. It's extra courts, almost no money. They're willing to give us these courts. We're going to have them for like 7 days a week, for hours each day. That's hard to turn down. Now I understand that maybe it's not peak hours, or maybe the sun is sometimes in your eyes, but you guys aren't snowflakes. You can adjust. So I think that's my number 1 way out in front preference. Number 2, I would like to see us modify it would be item 5, modify the current configurations of courts and establish a priority use schedule. I think that might be a good second thing after number 1. I'm basically leaning toward things that can be done quickly and that don't cost us a lot of money as a rule. So that's where my preference is going. Number 3 is kind of a toss-up between fixing the lighting at Tapo Canyon and why do I keep calling it Tapo Canyon? Tapo Community Park.
Separate discussion about renaming these parks.
There you go.
Another
People are
night,
still calling
I'm
it
open to
Lemon.
it.
Don't look at me.
Which one should be Dennard Park?
Also for Lemon Park. We could just call it Lemon Park. We all know which park it
All right,
is.
Lemon Park, Duck Park, yeah. I'm sort of divided between upgrading the lighting and converting 2 tennis courts at Rancho Simi. I think those are but those are like in third place. The first is right after the using the school courts and modifying the course we have, the configuration, the priority schedule, I think would be good. I absolutely do not want to do lighting at Sinaloa Pickleball. That's $300,000, and it's not even our property. I think it's a bad idea, honestly. And I think eventually, obviously, we're probably going to have to construct new pickleball courts, but I think let's start with other stuff that doesn't cost us a lot and doesn't take too long.
Thank you. I also have that feeling I don't want to make it any harder for young people to participate in sports. There's all sorts of barriers, transportation, money, hours. If you tell a student they could only do it at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever other time, they have so many other commitments that they're up against that we expect of young people. And I know young people right now, pandemic, extracurricular activities, grades, it's already hard enough to get them involved. So I see tennis as a really good sport for them to join. I would like it to be pickleball, and it will be. And I know some people do play it, but I look forward to a future where we have young people coming to us saying we need a lot of pickleball courts and talking about them playing in competitive leagues, and I want to see that happen. I know some do, but I think we can make a lot of progress and increase those numbers. I know that the middle schools have the programs for it, and they have some leagues, and sometimes they play against each other, but it's a part of PE, and it doesn't always extend beyond PE, and I want it to. So, Zach, I bring that up just to see opportunities for young people to also learn pickleball, because I think it's a sport, but it's also the community, and pickleball builds community in a unique way, so I want them to be able to experience that too. I like the idea of Sinaloa being open. I know, Ed, as you mentioned earlier, that doesn't take much from our position to do, but if that's a part of our plan, I want us to ask the school district about more breaks and holidays. I know that not every day where there's not school, there's already staff, so it can't be used on those days, you know, the staff development days. But winter break, that's 2 weeks, Thanksgiving. And I'm thinking tournaments, because I want to see, I know the pickleball community does a good job in tournaments, but I want to see more of those. And that might provide them with the opportunity to do so. I know that the sunlight direction is an issue, and maybe that's not going to be an issue. That's not where you normally want to play, but if it's a part of a larger tournament for some of the facilities, like maybe Hillside and Valley View are not open every day, but if that's a part of a marketing plan to host a large tournament, we have a central court and others. I do like the idea of, I believe it was Vicky brought up earlier about fundraising for courts. I don't want to take any courts away from tennis, but we looked at Rancho Madera, Wood Ranch, and we thought to complete the park and the part that's not built, that we wanted to build pickleball courts there. I'm open to the idea, although I know it's expensive. So if the pickleball community wants to start fundraising towards that and bring a plan, like dedicate tournament fees towards building that, I'm not asking them to pay for the whole thing, but if they want to bring that plan, I'd be very interested in that. I would like to see more pickleball courts built, and that could be a place to do it. That doesn't require motion because I'm just suggesting they come up with a plan to work with us, and if they come up with that plan, we'll entertain that plan and see the details of it. And I do like, with number 3, I don't want to take away those courts, but I want to hear from other board members about dual use. Would you prefer to keep them as the existing, not convert them, dual use? I wanted your other opinions on that.
I'm leaning toward like dual use, like the dual use courts. I think it might be the best idea.
Should we go through each one of these separate motions, or?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe after we talk about dual use, there might be a feeling of consensus, but we might need to make separate motions. Any discussion about dual use courts at Rancho Simi?
I prefer it not to convert.
Not to convert it from tennis to pickleball.
I apologize. Director Freeman, can you speak closer to the mic? I couldn't hear your comments.
I prefer not to convert the other 2 courts at Rancho Simi. Leave them as tennis.
Well, he's not saying convert, he's saying turn them into dual use.
Where there's strike for both sports and you have to move the nets back and forth.
You know, I want to leave them as everything as is.
So I actually don't think that is a bad suggestion. I know I don't think either the tennis or the pickleball side would love that, but they there was comments that it's you know, as a last resort it's okay to go, that the you're not going to want to, I don't think you're going to want to hold tournaments on the dual use courts, but you can certainly do instruction on dual use courts. So I actually think that's a reasonable suggestion. Can I ask one question of staff?
Yeah.
Wayne, I'm assuming there's not a huge cost to turning into dual use, is there? No. Okay.
What would the
Well,
time?
why don't you just tell me what not a huge cost?
At $105,000.
No, it's not. To turn it into dual use.
We can probably get away with $1,000 worth of striping.
How much? I can't hear.
the dual stripe at Rancho Simi Community Park.
Yeah.
Both courts will be about $4,000.
Right, so that's pretty much 100,000 less than converting them, and it's it's still close to 60,000 less than putting lights at Rancho Tapo.
That is correct.
I'm confused. It says 104,975.
That's to convert.
That's to convert. That's to take out the tennis courts,
Okay.
put in the new permanent
I'm
pickleball
sorry.
court nets. Director Eppler was talking about me just striping 4 blue
Okay.
line pickleball courts and Zach buying 4 portable nets.
Okay.
Zach, I have a question for you about dual use. So my intention of doing that is when tennis courts are not being used, that we can maximize pickleball courts. But at the same time, that might require rules or scheduling, like Wednesday nights are dedicated to pickleball. How doable is that for you?
So it is absolutely doable. I think you guys face a similar dilemma out in Oak Park and have a set priority use time for certain sports. On those dual use courts, you've restriped those in Oak Park. I envision something similar would probably have to take place. The staff could work out variable options, hourly, blocks of time, days of the week. So all that's doable. We'd have to monitor the usage and try to avoid the conflict between 2 different groups trying to play on the same court at the same time. But it is achievable.
And our attorney Brian could guide me on this. Brian, we've already heard public comment, but I have a specific question that the public could probably answer better than our staff. Is there anything that prevents me from asking them?
Anything that prevent you from asking staff?
Oh, no, the public. I had a very specific question I don't think that our staff can answer very well.
No, you can ask questions to the public as long as it's on the subject matter.
Okay, thank you. My question, Zach, maybe you do know, we mentioned dual use and tournaments, and I did hear that feedback earlier from, I know that we don't prefer them. I don't like them either as far as playing. It's not the perfect solution, but I want to know, is that facility usable for tournaments in that way? Is it slightly restricted? Like how much does it hinder hosting a pickleball tournament if it's, yeah, but these 2 courts over here are dual use?
I'd be open to hearing from the public as well on this, the people that play more often, obviously, but I would say that the dedicated courts are going to be the best courts to try to house a competitive tournament of some kind. Now, if you're talking about a beginner play tournament, youth tournament, that's probably different. We have various facilities throughout the district that are different levels, let's say, right? Soccer fields might be an example. But I think if you're talking about a competitive tournament where you're trying to attract both residents and potentially outside of the district, I think you're going to need those dedicated courts. And my gut tells me that people would be less inclined to play on portable nets on a shared court than a dedicated pickleball facility. That's just my gut instinct as we talk about it tonight.
We'll keep that brief because we've already had public comment earlier, but is there anybody from the pickleball community that can speak on that item? My specific question, come on up.
I agree with the director.
Okay. So my goal is also that
Just
we
to be
can host
fair-
large tournaments.
Just to be fair, and I know I got a head nod, but on the tennis, same situation. It's okay for recreational use, but it would be less desirable for a highly competitive or tournament situation.
All right, absolutely.
So it helps in terms of overall use, but that would be a last resort or no resort as far as a tournament situation.
Yeah.
Also for the board's knowledge, there are portable nets at one point during COVID that we did take out to share usage. They weren't utilized to the extent that we thought they would be. We had to lock up the portable nets and have a system for unlocking them when our instructors were out there to provide more instructional courts. So we do have a couple of portable nets purchased already, although the experiment that we kind of tried had some logistical challenges with moving of the nets, securing the nets, and things of that nature. So we'd have to work out some of those details as well if we went down that road.
And Zach, I apologize because I asked you a related question earlier. I know that we have programs for beginning pickleball that are very popular. I get that. And I know that you said that young people sometimes sign up for them, but it's not the biggest demand. What's the status of young people specific pickleball programs?
To my knowledge, we haven't marketed or advertised for a youth pickleball kind of program at this point. I think we've been kind of catering to the adult audience, who has been the bulk of who we've had register. There's nothing to say we couldn't put a youth kind of lesson out there, but I get the sense from my knowledge of pickleball is that a beginner is a beginner, so it doesn't really matter what age you are. You're kind of learning the basic skills. Again, I probably could defer to some people here, but the lessons are designed for kind of all ages, so it doesn't really matter how old you are to engage in a beginner pickleball lesson. You're learning kind of the same skills regardless of age.
I know they've been offered in the past, but if that's something that anybody wants to become an instructor for, we have a program for that. You could talk to Zach at a different night, and if you want to set that up so we could build demand and build the youth programs up. Unless there's any other question, the way that I'd like to do it is, I sense there might be some consensus on some of the items, but we might make multiple motions.
I have one question.
Yes?
Just so that everyone has the picture and I make sure I understand, if we were to take the two remaining tennis courts on the one side of Rancho Simi and make them into dual use courts, unlike the conversion where that would add 6 additional pickleball courts, the dual use would add the potential for 4 additional, correct? I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yes, that's
Which
right.
is still better than 0.
Correct.
I know some of the board members spoke, but about converting them to dual use rather than just converting them. Any other feedback or comments on that?
I would be more enthusiastic about that than about converting. It's cheaper and it still leaves an option for the tennis players.
Chair, if I could, before, on item number 4, I just wanted to know that if we do the better lights on the pickleball courts at Tapo, you're probably going to create a need or a desire for better lights on the tennis courts.
Yeah, that's
So
what
I just
said.
wanna-
We need to look at
I just
that.
wanted to point that out.
And I just want to make clear, I wouldn't even spend the $60,000 on the pickleball because it's money that you're gonna be better off spending down the road on either conversion or additional courts later. And then when you talk on top of the $60,000 that you may have to spend more money on lighting for tennis courts, it improves the lighting. It's not that you can't play there under the current lighting, and it doesn't solve the overall problem of adding additional courts. I feel like you're getting so little for the money you're spending if you do that project right now.
Chair, if I could, in addition, I agree with the director. We have a standard for lighting in our parks and on our fields, and that's the level of lights that are at Rancho Tapo right now. What happened was, for whatever reason, we put a higher standard of lighting at Duck Pond. Wayne may have a little more information, but what we did when we did that is we created an expectation that everybody gets those lights. So that's going to be something that kind of reverberates. Once we start to add those better lights at different places, everybody, softball fields, soccer fields, then we're raising that level of expectation to a level of lighting. The level of lighting, as I understand, Wayne said, is almost professional level lighting at Duck Pond, and we provide for recreational use, so just pointing that out as well.
So I'm gonna make a motion, but it will not include all these items, and then we'll have a discussion of that motion to see if that's our consensus or our agreement. I move that we approve items 1, 3 with the modification to dual use, and then 5 with the understanding for 1 that we'll ask about breaks and holidays, and then for 5 that we will consider, staff will look at the need to shift. I'm not saying immediately, but long-term shift some of the programs when Sinaloa's open during the day, that we might shift some of the programs over there.
Sure,
Yes, sir?
If I could, it's not worded very clearly in here, but number 5, as Director Avila pointed out earlier in the meeting, to modify the current conversion is restriping. That's the intent of that. So you would do 1 and 5
Okay.
with the priority use. 3 would not be there.
I'm going to make that motion again. 1 in 5 shift to Sinaloa, more breaks and holidays. Any second or discussion?
Actually, before anybody seconds, I just wanted to say one thing. I would prefer to, well, in terms of my vote, the problem that I have with 1 is, I'm going to state right now that while I think it's worth trying, I don't think that 1 is going to solve the problem. And so I almost wish we would break up the motion into parts, because my intention on 1 would be to abstain, not because I'm against it, but because by voting for it, I feel like I'm sending a message that I think it's going to solve the problem when I think it won't. Number 5 is what we talked about, which is, I would just flat out state what we want to do with number 5, which is, if I were to make the motion, I'd make the motion that we convert 2 of the tennis courts at Rancho Simi into dual use courts. And then I guess the second part of that would be establish a priority use schedule which provides exclusive pickleball and tennis.
I will take that feedback. I'm going to remake that motion, but I'm going to say, for my fellow board members, just because I make this one motion on this one item, that doesn't preclude us from going down the list and looking at each item individually if anyone makes a motion. But I'll make a motion that we approve suggestion number 1 with the modification. We ask about breaks and holidays to expand it there. I'm doing that because, as Ed mentions, that doesn't solve the problem. And if next year we work on this problem and we add a few more courts, well, good. That means there's progress, more people are playing pickleball. But I'm doing that because I think it's going to not solve the problem, but it's going to help. It's going to be a lot more hours and possibly a lot more days.
Are you talking just Sinaloa?
Just Sinaloa. If Hillside and Valley View, I mean, that's a part of the motion, but I don't anticipate staff would see the need for that. But that the pickleball community is going to line up to play there.
Yeah, should you choose, you could give us direction to open it up when needed, so we don't have to like rediscuss this portion. If you wanted to, we could, if we noticed Sinaloa was being used to capacity, we would explore Valley View, I think was the second choice of the board.
Yeah, you might contact.
And then go from there. I mean, I would be happy to just.
You wouldn't just open them, but you'd contact the pickleball community and see if they're interested in it?
Correct, we could do all of that at the staff level, I believe.
All right, so my motion is to approve number 1 with the more breaks and holidays and allow staff the flexibility to open up those other 2 if there's a demand and a need and people want to play on them. Kate, second that?
And as just brief discussion, just so that it's clear, I'm going to be voting, I'm going to abstain. 1, because I don't feel it requires board action, and 2, I don't in any way want to endorse the idea that that's going to solve the problem in any way.
And what was that?
But I'm not against it being done, but I don't want to in any way endorse the idea that I think that's going to.
What did you say about the prior board's action?
I don't think it requires
requires board action.
And I don't think it's going to solve the problem. I'm not against it, and that's why I'm not going to vote against it, but I'm going to abstain.
I would like you to, I know that you stated your opinion, and it's well thought out. I would like you to consider that none of these individually solve the problem, so there could be the reason to abstain from any of them because they won't solve it, even if it does make progress. And the other one is, it's a part of that, I'm going to ask that we thank the school district for our partnership, that it does create some issues for them, but they're working through them. So I do
think the school district, and I've mentioned that multiple times tonight.
Fair enough. We have a first and a second. Any other discussion on item 1, that motion? Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila?
Abstain.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Yes.
Chair Dunner?
Yes.
The motion carries with Director Avila abstaining.
We're going down.
Yes. Chair, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one well, the only other one that I think is that I would be in favor of here. I'll go ahead and make the motion that we modify the configuration at Rancho Simi to convert 2 additional tennis courts into dual use courts, and then establish a priority use schedule which provides exclusive pickleball and tennis use at specific times each month.
Director, if I could, On the scheduling, it's just for those 2 courts that we're converting, correct? It's not any other dual-use courts that we're scheduling? Just the 2 courts at Rancho Simi for a potential shared or exclusive use schedule?
That will be my motion, unless
Okay.
someone wants to amend.
Thank you. I just wanted a point of clarification on that for staff.
Dan, can you repeat that?
So Ed had made the motion that he wants to strike Rancho Simi 2 courts to make them dual use. And then the add-on was to explore a exclusive use schedule. My question was, it's for those 2 courts at Rancho Simi, not other dual use courts that we have in the district, but only those 2.
Scheduling would be only on those 2.
Exclusive use scheduling would be on those 2, not other dual use courts at other locations in the district.
And I'll modify it to say, and establish a priority use schedule as the staff deems appropriate, because I don't want to force the staff into something that isn't going to work. So leave it to the staff to work that out.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion of that? Ed, I heard you say you don't want to force staff into that we gave us very specific detail. But as a part of that, I had mentioned earlier, if there's going to be a Sunday morning class and Sonoma's open, I'd imagine staff would see that fit to use better.
Right, I just don't want to, I think all that, we can each individually discuss that with staff. It's not part of my motion.
Okay.
I don't want to bind them into something that makes it worse for the pickleball players and the tennis players. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't say that they had to shift it, but just that they'd keep that in mind that we open up this other facility.
It's basically enabling the staff to set that type of a schedule.
Any questions on Ed's motion? Or I'm sorry, any discussion? Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
No.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Yes.
Chair Jenner?
Before I vote on that, Elaine, you understood that it was just going to be dual use. We weren't converting them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, yes.
Yes. The motion carries with a 4-1 vote, with Director Freeman voting no.
Are there any other motions related to pickleball? Any of the board members? Before we move on to the next item, I'm going to ask staff to do the following that is directly related to this item but doesn't require a motion. That we issue a press release thanking the school district for working with us to open more facilities, and that we advertise the programs that we currently have so that more people will sign up for our pickleball classes, and it creates such a demand that 6 months from now there's another meeting and we try to work through this even more. The other parts of that is, I did read through a report earlier, and it was about cost and the calculations. I do have confidence that when we create the calculations, we're very careful with them. The calculations, that's not the primary drive that changed my opinion on anything tonight. But I know that when Wayne does that, he does his very best to get them accurate, and then often construction costs rise. So I know that the cost of pickleball courts might be expensive, but that doesn't mean we won't try to do it more. So I mentioned earlier, this is not for staff, but for the pickleball community. If you want to present a plan for fundraising to help us achieve a fundraising goal to add more courts at a park, specifically Rancho Madera is one place, I'm open to that. But that's not a motion because if the pickleball community sees that as a good idea. Anything else on this item? That's going to bring us to the next item. On the way out, if you've come for this meeting, again, we thank you. If you like, the straw guides up here on the front, we always offer them. And we appreciate that you came and stayed here for 3 hours. 3 hours. If there's an award for civics or extra credit from a teacher, we appreciate it.
Can I just say thank you all for your time. You put a lot of hours into this and thought. We appreciate it so much.
Right. Thank you for your input. It was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That brings us to item 8B, second reading and adoption of amendment to ordinance number 3, allowing the use of drones in various areas of the district.
Thank you, Chair. At your October 7th meeting, the board approved a first reading of the ordinance which allows additional use of drones in various areas of the district by a 4-to-1 vote. At that meeting, the board desired to add that drones by permit would be allowed at certain special events. That item is before you for a second reading and adoption by the board. Staff's recommendation is that you request a reading of the title of the ordinance, and then following that reading, you waive further reading and adopt the amendment to ordinance number 3 relative to drones. That concludes staff's report.
Josh, I know you want to make a motion.
I was, if Josh made, you need to hear from the public though, I think. You need to ask the public, Brian. Josh, I'm gonna second your motion when you make it, but I think, Brian, don't you need to ask the public, Brian?
I did at the beginning of the meeting ask if anyone was going to speak on this item, but that is a good reminder, just in case anyone changes their mind. Anybody who would like to speak on this item, please unmute yourself or identify yourself, raise your hand maybe. For those at home, I don't see any members of the public in the meeting anymore. Although on Zoom there is, but there's not anybody in person.
Chair, if I could, you'd ask for a reading of the title of the ordinance prior to making the motion.
Okay. Could you read the title of the ordinance? Or is Brian going to do that for us? Brian, go ahead.
Sure. I think I've got it on the right page in the packet. Let me give it a shot here. Ordinance number 3, amended. An ordinance of the Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District Board of Directors establishing rules and regulations governing the use of district parks and facilities and participation in district programs.
Thank you, Brian. And the motion's to waive further reading and adopt the ordinance.
Josh, you're making that motion?
We want you to have center stage here, Josh.
All right, I'll make the motion to waive further reading and adopt amended ordinance number 3, an ordinance of RSRPD Board of Directors establishing rules and regulations governing the use of parks and facilities. I think Brian's dulcet tones may have been superior to mine there. That was.
I don't know, you said it very well.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
I'm going to abstain because I'm in favor of Rule 33, but not Rule 62.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair Bryant?
Yes.
Chair Denner?
Yes.
The motion carries with Director Freeman abstaining.
For staff, before we go on to the next item, I know that we need to have a communication plan that works on timing. So we already had one item from earlier, but when staff sees fit, no rush on it, to issue a press release with the new rules and work with Director Gray to get a quote why we created the new rules and our encouragement of jobs, training, education, recreation, and all that. But no rush on that if it's after the first of the year.
Thank you, Chair. I just would note that it's not effective for 30 days, so we'll probably wait on that, wait on that until it's effective.
And if we wait even after 30 days, I know we have to work on timing, so there's only so much, although I'm impressed, there's only so much staff can do all at the same time. That brings us to new business, item A, approval and adoption of part-time employee pay schedule effective December 24th, 2021, and review and approval of recruiting incentives.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide staff's report.
Chair Denner and members of the board, the state minimum wage has been increasing by $1 per hour for the last 5 years. The rate is increasing from $14 to $15 per hour beginning January 1st, 2022. The part-time pay schedule attached to the staff report reflects the implementation of the minimum wage mandate, and in addition, other positions were increased a minimum of 3% or more to provide a cost of living adjustment and to maintain an appropriate pay scale for the various classifications. Staff is also recommending an enhanced recruiting program, and the first one is a referral incentive that would include a $250 payment to any current Rancho Simi employee who refers an applicant who is hired by the district. And there'll be some criteria that would have to be followed, including certain positions and a limited time frame when that would be available. And then if needed, a potential signing incentive, which would include a $500 payment to incoming after-school club employees. And again, there'd be parameters around that program as well that would be defined as it's announced. The cost of the proposed part-time wage increase for the first 6 months of January to June is included in the 21-22 final budget. And at this time, staff is recommending approval of the new pay schedule as well as the new enhanced recruiting programs.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff?
Just so I'm clear on what is signing bonus. Signing bonus is to the new employee, not the person who referred him, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
I'll second.
I see Kate with that second. It was pretty close. I know that we're doing this because for a variety of reasons, including a labor shortage, and I know that paying employees is a big part of recruiting and retaining, and also that we show respect and kindness towards our employees, that they're happy to work here. So I'm happy to be able to do this to close all those gaps. Gina, will you call the roll?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
Chair Denner?
Yes.
And the motion carries with a unanimous vote.
That brings us to item 9B, selection of the chair and vice chair of the board of directors, and extend privilege of the floor to the outgoing board chair and an incoming board chair. Dan,
Thank you,
before we
Chair.
get to that item, I have a question for you. Do we put I know we can do it in a variety of ways. Do we usually do it together or two
Yeah,
separate
we
motions?
do one at a time.
One at a time, and which one do we do first?
Chair.
Chair and then vice chair? Okay.
Thank you. I didn't-
Dan, go ahead.
You have to one at a time. I have a question just for, doesn't matter, Chair Denner. I do want to, the question I have is, do we do the selection of the
Committees?
The chair and vice chair first, or do we, if there's any comments that we have, do we do that prior to the outgoing? When does the chair make his comments and when do we make
I
comments?
think you can guys do that whenever you want. So it's up to the board.
So you'll introduce the item,
You're still
we'll
the chair,
discuss,
so it's up
then
to
we'll
you.
make motions.
What's that?
I said Dan will introduce the item, we'll discuss, and then we'll make motions.
I would recommend you appoint the positions and then.
And
do
then
the
make the
privilege.
any
That makes
comments we
sense
want to
to me,
make?
yeah.
Okay.
I move
I need to do a little report here, real quick.
Go ahead.
For the record. So usually historically, the first meeting in December is when we rotate our chair and vice chair. We usually do that once a year. Historically, the Park District has done that on rotation. So tonight's the evening that we would make those changes to the chair and vice chair positions. Director O'Brien, as the vice chair, is slated to take the reins of chair, and Mr. Gray, in the rotation, would assume the position of vice chair. Staff is recommending that the board make those determinations, and then also extend the privilege for the outgoing chair to make some comments, and also the incoming board chair. As I understand it, I've talked to Kate and Brian. We've decided that Brian's just going to finish this meeting out, and Kate will take the gavel at the beginning of the next meeting. All that, and in
If
addition,
she wants a gavel.
if she wants a gavel. In addition to that, as a token of.
Wait till I make my comment.
So at some
Don't
point,
take it yet.
at some point from.
Gavel's what I want.
At some point from all of us, the board and us and the district as a whole, we've got the ceremonial gavel for serving as the chair for the past year that we can present.
on the 10th.
And then I also want to make some comments
On
about
December
the outgoing chair too, so.
All right, so we're going to discuss the chair, and I think there was a motion to appoint a chair.
I move to appoint Kate O'Brien as chair.
I'll second.
We have any discussion of that? Not seeing any. Gina, will you call the roll on that?
Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
Chair Denner?
Yes.
And the motion carries with unanimous vote.
And I'll make the motion to appoint Josh Gray as vice chair.
And I'll second that. I was a little bit quicker than you. Any discussion on that? Gina, will you call the roll?
Director, that's right. Director Avila?
Aye.
Director Freeman?
Aye.
Director Craig?
Aye.
Why was that the hardest question for you?
Hey, it was a close call for me too, Josh.
I wasn't sure if Kate abstained or how I vote for myself.
Vice Chair O'Brien?
Aye.
And Chair Tender.
Yes.
Motion carries with a unanimous vote, including Director Gray.
Chair, I now recommend we extend the privilege of the floor to the outgoing chair, and then anybody that wants to make comment on that can do that after any comments you might have.
I'm going to thank staff at the beginning, just in case somehow I get distracted in the middle of this and forget that. But in a difficult year, and there's been many difficult years, our staff has kept things open. We've added new programs instead of shrinking the size of the things we did. As a board of directors, we ask them to do more with less at times. And so anything that I say, I know that it's not I did this, but we did this as a team, and I appreciate that. And that's from each department and each part that we did that together. But instead of using a lot of words and notes, I just brought a bunch of stuff, maybe from my garage, possibly the board office. So highlights of some of the fun things that we did in the last year, celebrating Earth Day, and not just celebrating Earth Day, but getting kids involved. So chair and vice chair, when you see this in the office, it's student artwork, you'll get to see that. I keep it up there. We covered a fair amount of graffiti, and this one matches the rocks in the Simi Hills. If you're ever looking for presents, a very specific type of paint works. The theme that I had when doing the Pledge of Allegiance was often scouts and volunteers in our community. So that's why, Wayne, I appreciate you giving me these trash pickers. And these trash pickers are fun. I've done it with hiking groups. I've given them out to a Rotary for a Key Club. A lot of people are going to be doing service with them, so I appreciate it. Because one of the things that I felt really good about this year is we made opportunities for people to volunteer, give back, and provide service to others. I think we did a really good job at that. Although sometimes staff, we had to pick up after the problems that are left by others. We'll just leave it at that. But that means there's so much to do, and we appreciate you. This really was my garage. In a pandemic where it's difficult to do programs, we, instead of saying we can't do things, we just said how can we do things, and our staff found ways to do that. And I am looking forward to January this year, where hopefully more people, more projects, not necessarily more staff work hopefully, but a lot of people coming together and doing good work together. So I keep the inaugural poster. I appreciate staff pulling that out from last year's Martin Luther King Day and getting it to me. I've only got a few more items. We had some good coverage in the Acorn and other newspapers locally about our programs, and the Ventura County Star. We appreciate them. As an example, scout projects. So this scout was on the cover of the Acorn, and with so much negativity in the world, I know that we could talk all about the things that people do in our community that are wrong and kids getting in trouble. But every time there's someone in trouble, there's another group waking up early to volunteer. So even when it's difficult, I'm trying to focus on them. So I appreciate all the different projects that young people did and they were able to contribute. And that includes that at one of our graffiti removals, we were able to read our land acknowledgement statement, and that we're working towards youth programs that prepare them for the future, for them to take over leadership in our community. I'm looking forward to visiting our after-school clubs, reading books with them. I know, Zach, we haven't coordinated time yet, but when I reflect upon the year, I think of all the work we're able to do, even with all the barriers in it, and when I say we, I mean it was a team, so I appreciate that we're able to do all that. I would drone on, but we already moved past that item on the agenda, so I'm going to stop there.
Oh, God. Thank goodness.
Appreciate it. Dan, I think you said that we extended microphone, the time to our incoming chair.
I think we should make comments about the outgoing chair at this point.
Right, and you probably want to give it as a.
Yeah, and I'd recommend that on behalf of all of us, the other board members and staff,
I'll go first, because I actually thought.
you can present the plaque.
Why don't we present that on December 10th, the holiday party?
We normally do it.
Because the dad has to carry it around.
Yeah, I would just do it. We normally do it. So anyway, I did think about this. I'm not going to say you were the perfect chair, because you weren't. I'm going to explain that in just a minute. But you did do a really good job, and I enjoyed your year as chair almost as much as I enjoyed being chair. Although we both faced difficult circumstances with something neither one of us expected, with the pandemic and the related restrictions and the things that we had to deal with. The one comment, because again, I can't give you all the good stuff until I and I'm glad we had pickleball tennis on the agenda tonight, so that I was able to illustrate this. But I think in terms of efficiency, you set the record for the most 3-hour-plus meetings in a year. So if there's one thing you can improve on the next time around when your chair is maybe refine a little bit. But it came with a lot of good. So there's three things I want to emphasize. And I'm actually, sometimes you save the best for last, but I'm going to start.
Taking notes.
But it's almost 10 o'clock, so I'm going to start with the most important one first. I know, I've known you, again, you're one of these people I've known before we were on the board together, and I know your adult life, really, has been dedicated to youth, and the passion with which you brought that dedication to youth to our board and your year as chair just rivals none. And the youth is our future, and it actually, again, came up tonight because of the pickleball tennis discussion. And for that, you're a champion, and you should always be praised. And that's the thing I'm most going to take away from your year as chair, your emphasis on the Park District being fun and your understanding of the importance of our youth. And I share that with you, and you're the one, I think, in my time on the board who's brought it out better than anyone else. And to me, that's always going to be the most important part of this past year and what you've left us with. The second thing, I got to mention this because I love patting myself on the back, but that I've appreciated about you is that you've learned from your predecessors, and I know that some of the things that I started going, you kept going or took to a different level, and that is that you learned and you incorporated things that other chairs have done, certainly that I've done. And I've got to mention one. I don't want to crash Kate's party here, but I really appreciated the fact that we had a second gavel this year, because I said it before and I'll say it again. To me, the gavel it's kind of like a tool of pompous arrogance that serves no purpose but to antagonize. And respectful meetings and informative meetings and productive meetings don't require the banging of a gavel, and I think you and I have shown that for these past couple of years. But there's other things too, and I don't need to go through them all now. But that you've taken what someone else has done before and moved on with it, or even taken it to another level, and that makes me feel good about my year as chair, and makes me appreciate you more that you're willing to do that. And then the third part is how I've learned from you, and hypothetically speaking, if I were ever to be the chair again, I've learned from you, and there's things that I would incorporate that you've done. Yeah, okay, so some of these meetings have been kind of long, but with it, and you and I have had this discussion before, and Brian, that probably my two favorite leaders of all time are Ronald Reagan and Martin Luther King Jr. And they spoke to two different constituencies, but they spoke about opportunity, and they spoke about hearing from the people and understanding that the people and the residents, they're the ones in charge, not us. And you have an appreciation for that, and you have a way of dealing with the public, whether it was the public on Zoom or the public in person, that I've learned from, and that I'm going to try to incorporate in my style in the future, to make sure they were heard from, to make sure they were appreciated, and that we truly considered everything that they were saying, and such an understanding of those concepts. And so I'm glad you mentioned the MLK Day because I think it's appropriate, and I know you do the work with the Reagan Library, and I can tell that you incorporate that into how you've led us as chair, and that's something that I've taken away, and that I will attempt to utilize in leadership positions in the future, and I really appreciate that. So congratulations on a really successful year as chair, Brian.
I appreciate it.
Chair, I might suggest that the rest of the board present Mr. Dennert with his plaque and maybe a photo op so then I can do a
Well,
press.
I think other people want to speak.
Okay, yeah. I didn't see anybody.
Josh?
Yeah, I'll keep my remarks short so we can get to that. I will echo Ed's words and also just add, I haven't had much experience with other chairs, but I will say I will echo the fun bit and the soul and the civics teacher in you, and how great that was seeing you lead the board as chair and interacting with residents of this community. And I'll just finish by adding that one of my favorite quotes is "Attitude reflects leadership," and you bring an attitude of fun, engagement, and passion that I think can oftentimes be lacking in life right now. And I think it matters now more than ever that people have a positive attitude and take these things on. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your service on the board and time as chair.
Thank you. Take a picture.
Anybody else want to come?
Picture?
Elaine?
No, I just want to reiterate what has been said, but also you have a dedication to the district and an energy and innovation of ideas that has been really creative, and you've brought involvement of youth directly, and I really appreciate that, and your energy that goes into the graffiti removal and all the projects that you're involved in the community, and you set a good example for the district. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your advice on going too fast and too slow, because there's only so many ideas we can do all at the same time. So I appreciate those comments.
Yeah, I just want to echo that you do bring a lot of energy and passion to the role of chair and to the board, and we appreciate that. And I can see the history teacher in you up there.
Thank you.
So you did great. Glad to have you as chair.
Let's take that picture.
Give him his plaque.
Presentation of the plaque. I'll probably do a press release on the changing of the chair and the new chair as well. So.
Are we going to go up there with him, or is he?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, Ed, you want to do the honors?
No, you should, it shouldn't be any one of us.
Okay.
Well, Ed is wearing green though.
I wore green.
Good for me.
I purposely wore some green.
Great leadership. Thank you for getting us through a tough year on behalf of all the department heads. So, do we want to get the department at the picture?
There's one more picture I'm planning.
Ready?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I finally got the gavel.
Yeah, I got that up. My wife put that up on the wall at home, and I keep wanting to tear the gavel part off of the plaque, but I haven't done it yet.
That brings us to extending privilege of the floor to our incoming board chair.
In the interest of time, because it's really late, I'm going to probably waive saying anything. I'm looking forward to being chair for the next year, and I probably will use the gavel. We haven't had a gavel in a while. I think it's high time. I know.
I'm going to snarl at you if you ever bang that thing, I'm going to snarl at you.
Josh?
I banged it once at someone. I had a couple of times I've had to bang it at someone who just would not.
Yeah, I'm going to snarl at you if you do that.
Pickle Walters. Pickle
pickleball versus tennis. in
Don't
Oak Park.
What a shock.
Don't need
In
it.
Oak
Just,
Park.
all it does is make
Yeah.
people mad.
Well, I was mad because,
Josh, anything?
I appreciate the vote of confidence and looking forward to continue working with everybody. Short and sweet.
I'm excited for both of you to work together. I realized this over the last year that a title, whether it's board chair or board member, a literal chair in the middle, or whether it's a hammer, it's just a tool. But it allows you to do good work when you have some of those things. And the reason I mention that is I just think like that line from the Marvel movie where Odin says to Thor, either god of hammers or either god of thunder. Like, it's not the object, but it's a tool. And both of you, I'm looking forward to you using the tools that you have to do good work for our community in the coming year. That brings us to item 10, written communications of note.
Staff has no written communications of note.
That brings us to reports by board members. Josh, you're up first.
All right. I will just say thank you to everybody who helped out with the Simi Valley Education Foundation's fundraiser last month. I've been told they did quite well. I was also able to utilize that to promote some of our hiking trails. I've got some hiking ahead of me and giving some tours to residents in both RSRPD area and some MRCA, and raise some money for local schools. And then I will just thank the Dan and Terry in event scheduling. They helped coordinate this coming Saturday from 11 to 2, a Simi Valley Housing Resources Fair at Rancho Simi Community Park. So I wanted to thank Dan and thank Terry for their work on that. That I know the individual who was looking to set it up is very excited, and I'm very grateful that staff made that happen and in a timely manner. And I've been hearing lots of great things from the community for having a housing resources fair. So that concludes my report.
Elaine?
I had no meetings or event. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Ed?
I did, I don't know how many times we've like recognized him for it, but he deserves every single one. I did drop in for Wayne's 35th anniversary celebration here and snagged a couple cookies and watched him eat some key lime pie, which apparently is his favorite. But anyway, congratulations again, Wayne, and like I keep telling you, got another 35 to go. That's all I have.
Kate?
Yes, I did our monthly, end of month interview with the ranch, 99.1, the day before Thanksgiving, and it was loads of fun.
it was just like 15 or 20 minutes, and we kept getting off subject because it was the day before Thanksgiving. We started talking about Thanksgiving food from our past and what we did, and I and the DJ started getting really hungry. But it was fun, and if anybody who hasn't done that, please do it. It's a lot of fun. It's good. And I just want to remind everybody to get the booster too. I got mine yesterday. And if everybody gets fully vaccinated, maybe this pandemic will go away for good. That would be nice. That's all I have.
I appreciate your comments on that. As a dad, I'm telling you that as my 2 girls in school, and I want them to be able to stay in school and not have to quarantine and all that. I have them vaccinated, but this week there was 1 at each other school at least that tested positive. There's teachers testing positive, and you can imagine the chaos in the schedule. So I appreciate all that people try to do so that we can stay open and safe. I do see that there's a housing event this weekend. I have a prior commitment, but Josh, thank you for bringing that up. I know a lot of people put work into that. The next graffiti removal is on the 11th. That one's going to be a little bit more complicated for the meetup spot because we're trying to find a quicker way. So if you're interested in that, let me know later. I'm looking forward to our holiday party coming up. Hoping to see many of you all there. This weekend I'll be at the Reagan Library. There's the Reagan National Defense Forum, and I get to volunteer at it. So when I get to tell you more about that afterwards, I'm excited for that. Dan and I attended a meeting in the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and Dan will tell us more about the grant a little bit later, and fired, but I'm excited for that. I joined a group called See Me Hikers. There's trailblazers, hikers, there's a lot of people out there hiking. And the reason I mention it though is I brought some trail guides with me, so I want to thank our staff that worked on it because each time someone gets one, they're really excited. So Teresa, pass that on to everybody involved. And then lastly, sometimes when we look at different issues, we talk about like people outside our community and inside our community. And I want to tell you about a group that came to Simi Valley from LA to go hiking. They came and they met at 4:30 in the morning. I think it was the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And I've never met them, and they did a trail cleanup. So I've never heard of them, I don't know them, but some outside group, outside of our community, likes our trail so much. They woke up at 4:30 so they could do a trail cleanup and see the sunrise on the top of the mountain. And I just thought it was wonderful because sometimes people discuss like outsiders and insiders and all that, but there's people doing good work that we don't even know who they are. And I even sent them a message like about it to thank them. And I saw that day their bags of trash bagged up and waiting at the trash can later. And I just appreciate the Trail Brothers LA, their Instagram account. And they had a large group out there having a good time, inviting people to exercise and clean up our trail for us. That's just a feel-good story. So that's it for me, except for one last thing. I'm looking forward to that holiday party, and I know that I did get to just go. So I appreciate all the staff that has to do the work to put it together and organize and plan it and all that. And I know that that means there's hidden work happening, and I appreciate all that. That brings us to report by district manager.
Sure, just real quick on the holiday party, we are doing a magician this year instead of DJ because of COVID and such. So, really quickly, on behalf of the new chair, I will be sending out our annual email regarding committee assignments, where the chair will collect your priorities and preferences, and Kate and I will work on that. I expect that will come back at our January 5th board meeting. No issues at the skate park to report. The MRCA SMMC Fire Resiliency Grant, I'm pleased to report. Thank you, Brian, for being there as the chair with us and the member. We did receive a $500,000 grant from MRCA. We're going to use about $100,000 of that to do some removal of some. We've got an area we consistently get complaints in the bridle path area, so we submitted the grant for some debris cleanup in that area. We've also we submitted for a water tender, a new water truck. The truck we have is about 25 years old, and it's no longer air pollution compliant. So this was an opportunity for us to replace that vehicle without using district money. We are long awaited, and the maintenance guys are very happy. We were put in for a second chipper. We only have one chipper, and it has to go back and forth between Oak Park and here, and they kind of fight over using it. So we were able to get a second chipper for the crews. Another Bobcat. We'll be able to have another Bobcat. So we have folks to use both Bobcats, so that'll help in our efforts for fire breaks, and an emergency generator. So right now we have one generator. I think primarily when the power goes out, we use it to power this building sometimes, but we can use that generator to power the center if it goes out, or the center in Oak Park. So that was a need we had, and Wayne had recommended that. So the total of all those is about $500,000. Our October financials, we've kind of flattened out. We were doing well, we're still doing good, but it seems like with COVID, our rec programs have kind of flattened out, and they're below back to normal. Zach and I have talked about it. We attribute that kind of potentially to the mask things, and COVID obviously still going, and so folks may not be comfortable still signing up for programs, and potentially we didn't really anticipate Dr. Levin doing the mask mandate a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. So things are good, but our registrations in some programs are kind of flat. Zach and I have talked about doing some marketing and doing some things to really try to encourage people to get back to use. But not bad news, but hopefully that will get better over the next few months. On the city council agenda on Monday night, the city manager is recommending $1 million grant of COVID relief funds to the Park District based on restrictions of the way the grant funds can be used. Brian and I work on the pool. It's in a designated area that's eligible to use the funds. So we put in $1 million to help us with the rehabilitation of the building and the pump system and those kind of things. Ed and Elaine or designated to help to work with the council on getting them information on that. So we're doing that. We'll be attending the council meeting Monday night in support of that recommendation. Zach and I spent quite a bit of time with a gentleman here that expressed some concern over soccer needs and maintenance. So he came in last week. We gave him a lot of information. I think he left more knowledgeable, but also pretty impressed with what our plans are moving forward to try to meet that community need. Our Capri safety inspection, this is a big deal. Our insurers come down once a year and they spend all day with us, primarily with Teresa and Wayne, and they go through our whole organization to make sure we have a good safety program and that our facilities, amenities, and our programs are safe for the community. Pioneer Cemetery, got a request from the board out at Pioneer. There's a sign they have in the road next to Thompson Lane where Pioneer is. It's in the middle of the sidewalk and it's bent over and it's broken. They asked if they could put their sign, it's just a small metal sign, not in the middle of the sidewalk because it's a narrow sidewalk on our property. So Wayne and I discussed that and we're going to let them do that, but they were appreciative of us authorizing them to do that. Simi Valley Youth Baseball League, which is the one primarily that's at Sinaloa. They've grown, so we're letting them use some fields at the Knolls in Santa Sue. They expressed some interest in helping us rehabilitate those fields. So they're going to issue a contract to a contractor to refurbish Santa Sue and the Knolls for $37,000, and that league is paying for that. So certainly appreciated to them. Wayne is coordinating with them to get the work done, but that is basically they're using the fields. They wanted to make them better, and they are donating that to the district, that work to rehabilitate those two fields. We do have a job fair December 8th. We have a flyer of that's out and about, so if any of you have anybody that are interested, have them come. And then finally, if I could ask Mr. Reed, if he's still, is Brian still on? Brian is a new grandfather. Maybe we'll let Brian describe the feeling of being a grandfather, and congratulations to Brian for that, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I am. Monday night late.
New granddaughter, right?
Yeah, granddaughter, yeah.
Is this your first?
Yeah, my first. I don't know if I can throw a picture of her up here. Maybe you can see.
Very nice.
Gina, in the minutes for the meeting, the baby is adorable.
Cutest baby.
Yeah.
I want to see that reflected in the next meeting.
Congratulations, Brian. Two upcoming, December 16th, we're going to bring both the Activity Center and Rancho Santa Sue Phase 4 back. You guys have already seen most of that. It's bringing back the changes that you guys wanted to see, so I anticipate that to be relatively, not too long. Nothing to do with the facility fee proposal, like the long-term plan, but December's the time of year where we look at our just regular facility fees. We're going to bring that back to the board on the 16th. You guys obviously do what you want, so we'll bring that back, so an opportunity for us to discuss about what we want to do with just our facility fees. Our sports fields contracts usually come back in December, so those will be on the 15th, and then we have an award of contract for golf carts that Brian will be bringing back. So that's what's lined up for the 16th. January 5th, we've got a change to a policy on refunds, an update to the Historical Society agreement, and then the board committee assignments that I mentioned. So with that we have no committee meetings scheduled other than our regular Strathern meeting. With that concludes my report.
Thank you. That's good. Bring us to closed session. For closed session, Brian, can you give us advice on could we adjourn directly from closed session, or we might come back?
Well, I usually have to come back to announce if any actions were taken in closed session. So you'd want to do that. But beyond that, then you can adjourn.
Teresa, there's a possibility that there will be action, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to go into closed session. If you're waiting for the response for that, we will be coming back to open session and telling public if there was action or not.
For those operators, I anticipate it'll be pretty brief closed session when we come back for any announcements.
Before we go into closed session, do we read what the items are?
Yes.
Brian, you want to do that for us?
Sure. Closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.95. The claimant is Jeremy Rivette. The second item is closed session pursuant to Government Code 94956.95 relating to Michael Kessler.
Chair, you may want to just ask if there's any public speakers on the closed
Are there
session.
any public speakers on either of these items? I'm not seeing anybody in the building tonight, but on Zoom, is there anybody that might want to speak? Not hearing anybody or seeing anybody unmute themselves?
So I think department heads, and I think Brian Reed is not involved, so department heads. Yes. We'll stay up.
Those dulcet tones.
We are back, and Brian's going to tell us what happened.
During closed sessions, the board voted unanimously to reject the claim of Jeremy Rivette and voted unanimously to reject the claim of Michael Kessler.
Thank you. That brings us to an adjournment of our meeting tonight. Good night, everyone.
Good one.